Hey, good evening. I'm Mayor Jamie Clary, and welcome you and folks who are watching us to the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for the City of Hendersonville, Tennessee. This is October 22nd, 2024. We're pretty close to 7 p.m. We're going to begin, as we typically do, that's with a prayer and with a pledge. Tonight, leading our prayer is going to be Pastor Eddie Hodges. He is a retired pastor at Hendersonville Free Will Baptist Church. Pastor Hodges, we appreciate very much what you've been doing in Hendersonville and what your congregation has been doing in Hendersonville for. Y'all are 40, almost 50, is that correct?
Started in 67.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so please step up to the podium and lead us in prayer. Thank you.
Will you join me in prayer? Our Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us to live. Every day is a gift from you, for which we're thankful. And Lord, as we gather in this place tonight, we're thankful that you have given us these leaders to lead us in our city. We do ask tonight, Lord, that you bless our mayor and our aldermen. We think of those that serve continually, like our policemen and firemen, and those medical personnel. We pray that you would watch over and care for each one of them. Lord, as we come to you tonight, we pray for our city. We recognize that without your help, all the labor that we exert would be in vain. Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord watch over the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. And so we're thankful, Lord, for the word that tells us that you're there for us as we call upon you. And I'm thankful tonight that we're able to pray in this place and ask your blessing, your favor, for your wisdom and understanding over all the things that will be discussed and decided upon tonight. Lord, all throughout our city, there are those among us who have great needs. And we pray that you'd minister to those that are hurting, those that are under burdens and cares. I pray that you'd help us truly to look to you to know how to love our neighbor as ourselves. We thank you for our wonderful city and thank you for the many things that you have given us that are such a blessing here. And Lord, we think of those that are carrying loads tonight, like Miss Norma Bundy, dealing with Parkinson's, and as her family ministers to her, Lord, we pray that you would be close to them and care for them. And now we ask, Father, that you will bless this meeting. Bless all that will participate. Give us all a spirit of understanding and wisdom, and help us to seek your will throughout. For we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pastor Hodges, thank you. Again, that's Pastor Eddie Hodges from Free Will Baptist Church. Thank you so much. So please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have everybody here. There's no reason to call attendance. I'm going to entertain a motion that we accept our agenda. I heard a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Sassy. I'd like to propose that we add executive session. Let's do it after Bowman report. So it'd be item, I guess, right before adjournment, after Bowman report. Somebody give me a motion for that? Okay, we have a motion from Alderman Garton and a second from Alderman Garza. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. I'd also like to ask that what y'all's appetite is for grouping other agenda items. We have 6 appointments. Would y'all like to do those as a group, or is there some reason not to? I'm seeing heads shaking yes. Alderman Waters makes that motion. A second from Alderman Goodwin. Any discussion on grouping those? Okay. All those in favor of grouping other agenda items 5A, 6A and B, and 7A, B, and C, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Alderman Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm one of the sponsors on Ordinance 2024-16, known as the Safe Neighborhoods Ordinance. I would like to defer this if my co-sponsors would agree so that I can continue to work on this ordinance to reduce cost and also to respond to citizens' suggestions.
Okay.
So I would like to defer that.
Alderman Roberts, so if, to defer it, we'd have to take a motion, but since you're the sponsor and we can ask the other sponsors, would you like to withdraw it?
I would like to withdraw it for tonight.
Okay, Alderman Garza, are you okay with that? Agreed. Alderman Martin? Alderman Skidmore? Agreed. Alderman Bergdorf? Agreed. Okay, thank you all. So that is withdrawn. We do not have to take a motion, we do not have to take a vote on that since all the sponsors have asked to withdraw it. We end the executive session? Any other discussion or any other proposals regarding the agenda? So what we've done at this point is we've added executive session right before adjournment, and we've grouped the appointments. All those in favor of the agenda as amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have some presentations, and we get to do this once a month, and this is pretty phenomenal. I've already seen some of the pictures. I sort of snuck a peek there. But we've got the 2024 October Beautification Awards from Kathy Pascal.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman, it's good to be here tonight, and we have winners in each ward, all 6 wards, and a business winner this month, so we're very pleased with that. And most of them are here. I believe there are only a couple that were not able to make it tonight. So this will be our last presentation for the season, so we're going to go out in style here. And unfortunately, Greg Yandell was not able to be with us tonight, but they will be able to go by the store by Ace Hardware and pick up the gift cards that he is so generous to give them each month. So our first winner tonight for our business award is TriStar Hendersonville Medical Center. And Michael, if you will come on up. Mr. Russell, it is so good to see you, and thank you for what you've done. You can see the picture here with all of the landscaping that's been done, but the maintenance is just gorgeous. He's the facilities maintenance manager at the hospital or the medical center, and we appreciate it. It just looks great. It's outstanding. So thank you so much. All right. If you'll just stand there, just up there, right there. That's right. And then in Ward, and in Ward 1, Mr. Broussard, if you'll come on over. This is Paul Broussard, and he got it for me, thank you. I know that you have been here for some time at 175 Rebecca, but when he first bought here in the 90s, his house burned, and so he's rebuilt this, and you've done a beautiful job, and your neighbors appreciate it, and you were nominated and win this month. Thank you so much. Okay, if you'll just stand right there. And in Ward 2, Miss Stacy Crockett, if you will come on up. And she is at 107. Oh, they're doing it for me. I love it. Thank you. So that is at Blue Ridge Trace. Thank you so much. That is a beautiful property. You can't see it all in the pictures, but it's just a garden. I mean, beautiful all the way around. And we appreciate you, and your neighbors do. Thank you so much. If you'll just stand there. And then in Ward 3, if you will come on up, that's Steve and Pat Owensby, and they have done a great job here in maintaining, actually. They are transplants all the way from Donaldson, Tennessee. They moved here a year ago and retired and wanted to come to Hendersonville. So we love what you've done, and we appreciate you so much. So thank you. Thank you. If you'll just stand right up there. Thank you. All right. And then in Ward 4 at 152 Nathan Forest, Janelle Wine. Janelle, you will come on over here. I was riding through, and when this was nominated, and I came upon this because it's in an older area of town, but this place is just gorgeous. It's outstanding. I felt like I'd been taken to, I don't know, Colorado or Gatlinburg or somewhere. But Janelle, it's beautiful. She's a contractor and built the home herself 4 years ago, and we appreciate it so much. And she moved all the way from White House to Hendersonville, so thank you so much. And in Ward 5, we had a nomination for 195 Caudell, and it's absolutely beautiful. There's great landscaping there, hedges. It's just beautiful. And this couple were not able to be with us tonight, but they moved here 9 years ago from California. And so they've done a beautiful job at beautifying this home. You can't really tell, but they've added stones and all of that to the front of it. But it is gorgeous. So we've given them the Beautification Award for October at 195 Caudell. But at 185 Caudell, this property is right next door. It's owned by the same folks. That was Mike and Joy Valdez. And this home was the Mama Cash home. They own it, and it is being maintained. And part of what Beautiful Hendersonville does, not only beautifies and educates, but the preservation is very important to us. And the Valdezes are definitely preserving this home. We went in and did a tour of it. The interior is just like stepping back in time, but the grounds are maintained, and it's absolutely beautiful. So they had been nominated, so we've given them the award as well for their preservation. So we're excited about that, and hopefully they'll be back in town soon. And in the next Ward 6, Mr. Eddie, where are they? You're looking. Well, this was Rob and Barbara Rayburn, and they're in Ward 6 and at 138 Ashington. Their home is absolutely beautiful, and they were so excited about winning the award. So I don't know what has happened. I'm looking for them coming here any moment, but in case we do miss them. The house is beautiful. They've done a great job there, and they have moved here from Franklin, Tennessee. So, you know, everybody's coming to Hendersonville because it's a great place to live. And so they are going to move to my next one? Okay. So, and this was our successful citywide litter cleanup that we had this Saturday, and just wanted to show you a couple of slides from that. We didn't have as much trash to clean up, which we're thrilled about. I think the clean team is doing a great job with their routes, and just the litter awareness. I think people are doing a better job, so we're proud of that. Hendersonville. So again, this is our last presentation for this season. We'll start again in April, and please send in your nominations, okay? But thank you all.
So thank you, Kathy. So I'll be all up here. You gotta scoot in a little bit. There you go. Thank you all. It's a little bit easier for me to get lower.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. This next item is we have a public hearing. Let me read the rules for speaking as public hearing and for citizen comments. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per person, which time is not transferable to other speakers. All comments are to be directed to the presiding officer, not to aldermen, city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures, but the motives of those with different views shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for public office shall not be allowed. For those of you who didn't hear when I said this, and I've said this before, I am very sticky about 5 minutes. So if you don't get it done in 5 minutes, it's not going to get said. So please do your best to keep an eye on that. And we will have a timer. Jason, you'll have a timer up. Is that right? And you'll see it up there that will help you out. Let's see. Carrie Marlin of Highland Ridge.
I just want to start by expressing my gratitude to my aldermen. I reached out and everybody was responsive, and I got a lot of good feedback and insight. So thank you for, doing your job and getting back with me, and that just made me feel appreciated as a citizen. So, okay, tonight I stand in opposition of the rezoning of the 4.84 acres on Saundersville Road. primarily due to the anticipated rise in traffic and commercial strain it would place in our area. Assessing and leaving our neighborhood Windcrest is already quite challenging. Our current infrastructure is ill-equipped to handle a commercial rezoning in such a project. I know it's very hard to turn out of Tamara's Way. I had 2 kids that go to station camp, and so the mornings, it's very difficult. And I feel like if we put a commercial property right there on the other end, it's gonna make it even more difficult to, kind of exit or enter our entrance to our community. It says, so while I appreciate the concept of a nursery, I firmly believe that this particular location is not appropriate. I urge you to vote against the rezoning proposal, keeping in mind the concerns of the community and the residents who are opposed to it. We are all individuals who live and work and have deep connections to Hendersonville, and we are the essence of what makes this city such a wonderful place to live. Other commercial zoned locations in Hendersonville are more suitable for this type of establishment, allowing it to succeed without negatively impacting our established neighborhoods. I sincerely appreciate your willingness to hear our perspectives. It's vital that we protect interests of our current residents while considering the future of Hendersonville. A vote against this rezoning would reflect your dedication to maintaining the quality of life and character of our community. Many residents feel unheard and overlooked when it comes to developments that directly affect their lives. It's vital that we foster a dialogue that includes the voices of those impacted by these changes. In closing, I ask you to reflect that the long-term implications of your decisions. By voting against the rezoning, you will not only protect our neighborhood, but also uphold the value that makes Hendersonville such a desirable place to live. Together, we can work to make solutions to benefit everyone in our community. Thank you for your attention and considering the wishes of your constituents.
Thank you, Carrie. Maddox Marlin, Highland Ridge.
Good evening. I also want to reciprocate my thanks to everyone here for being able to have such a nice dialogue about this ordinance so that we may better reach a conclusion that benefits the city as a whole. To reciprocate many of the things that my mother said, I am wholeheartedly in agreement with the fact that we do not need to pass this ordinance, and I think it would be detrimental to the overall well-being of citizens who live off of Saundersville Road in general. However, I do not speak those as simply a mirror of my mother, but as somebody who has lived here for my entire life and drives that road every single day and every single evening. Traffic in Hendersonville has gotten significantly worse in the last several years, and I don't think that is an understatement for anyone. And I have concerns about the traffic at this specific junction right off of Exit 8. Particularly when the train comes, or if it's early in the morning or late in the evening, traffic will start building up all the way past Exit 8 to where it starts building up onto the Exit 8 ramp, and no one can get off, no one can start moving, and it gets to the point where it starts encroaching upon Windcrest's entrance. Putting another commercial property right there would do nothing but complicate the already increasing traffic flow, and I simply don't think we have a well-established enough road infrastructure to support a commercial business like this. Similarly, I also think that while there's plenty of great reason to want a commercial property in the spot and plenty of reasons that we should support the commercial development of Hendersonville as a city, I don't think that this is the spot to do so when we already have other commercially designated lots and we have specifically residential designated lots. If we are to develop anything on this property, I think it should stay as the suburban residential low density lot that it is, and develop more housing for citizens to come move to Hendersonville, as was so eloquently said prior, that this is a great place to live, and that's why people move here. Instead of focusing our efforts on the commercialization of Hendersonville to begin with, I think we should confine those efforts to already commercially designated zones and not concern ourselves with redefining the other non-commercial zones. Thank you.
Maddox, thank you. Ryan Servey, Huntington Place.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Ryan Servey, 115 Huntington Place. I'm speaking in support of the Windcrest Saundersville Road rezoning and development. My property is a stone's throw from the development site. I believe that this business has a good plan for our community, and the development will not degrade the experience of living on our street. I believe the property will remain clean, low noise, and low added traffic. The developer and executives from Moon Nursery have done a great job communicating with the neighborhood and have made all requested changes. I truly believe this is the lowest impact and choice for that area. I've spoken here many times, and what I keep saying is I can let my kids play in the backyard and I don't have to watch them because I know who my neighbors are. And if this isn't placed there, what will go there is rental homes, and then I won't know who my neighbors are. But I will if my neighbors will be trees. And I think that's going to be a really great plan. So I encourage you to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Karen Tapp, Briarfield Way.
Hello, Karen Tapp, 135 Briarfield Way, right off of Saundersville Road. I oppose this rezoning mostly due to the traffic in that area. I drive that every day. My family drives that every day, and it's I don't think suitable right now to I can't think, to accept any more traffic in and out of people trying to pull in and out of parking lots and things like that. So I hope that we can talk this over a little bit more and maybe not just push it back a few years until we can figure out traffic in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Michelle Tyndall, I think it is. I think it's spelled Tyndall. Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Tyndall. I live at 120 Windcrest Way. I'm about 5 doors down from the entrance of Windcrest entrance. And I'm speaking opposing the nursery. And I don't think there's been enough said. I don't think there's enough being said about what's happening on that lot. A lot of my neighbors said they didn't even know there was a nursery plan there or a zone change. So some people are saying there's a multitude of people who are for it. I don't know who the multitude is. Maybe the people I've spoken to either don't know it's there or don't know that that it's being proposed to change. I've been told it's a good alternative. I don't know how it's an alternative when there's no other options on the table. So I've also been told the seller is going to sell no matter what. But regardless of that, that doesn't mean we have to have commercial property there. Also, my husband and I moved here after we spent 20 years in the military, another 20 years in Clarksville, 30 years in Clarksville, and we moved here because it was a great place to live. And we chose our neighborhood because of the quality and the peacefulness of the neighborhood, but it seems like if you put this nursery in, we're going to lose that. Instead of being a neighborhood entrance, it's going to become a main thoroughfare. And we already have so much traffic. People come speeding down Saundersville Road, and trying to get in and out of our neighborhood's already tricky. So we want the neighborhood we have. We want the aesthetics of the neighborhood that we have. We don't want to live in a suburban commercial area. We chose to live right outside Indian Lakes. We like the beautiful area. So we're opposed to that because we don't want to destroy, what we have invested in, what we saved for all our lives to retire here. And this was our chosen location. And we have 2 grandchildren who come over to play, or we go and pick them up. And it's always tricky about getting in and out of the neighborhood with them in our cars. So we don't want to destroy that. We want you to consider the repercussions of putting something commercial there. And we want to keep our neighborhood quiet and peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Manny Tyndall, also Windcrest Way.
Mr. Mayor, board members. My name is Manny Tyndall. I live at 120 Windcrest Way, as my wife just mentioned. Over many, many years, we've lived on 3 continents. On many years that we have found that Hendersonville is one of the nicest, friendliest places that we could have chosen to live the last part of our lives. So we really appreciate being here. And my main concern is somewhat, I guess, environmental. A high concentration of plants makes it easier for pests and diseases to spread quickly. Plants will attract roaches, insects, foraging animals. Animals are living in trees. Animals become transitory and start entering neighboring homes. And there's always that foliage for our deer. And I've never been a place before where the city had a deer committee. There's so many deer around. There may be some use of pesticides for these plants and poisons for the rodents, which are an extreme health risk. If chemicals are not used, the disease-carrying pests and rodents are free to spread whatever they're hosting to the neighboring areas. What happens if a family pet wanders into that nursery and comes up on top of some of these chemicals? These poisons often accidentally kill dozens of wildlife, like our foraging deer. Use of fertilizers with nitrogen and phosphorus compounds can have a negative impact on neighboring human health. Fertilizers and pesticides used in nurseries can cause runoff, polluting the soil. Nurseries produce different kinds of waste like plastic pots, trays, and plant leftovers, which must be handled properly to reduce the harm to the environment and to deter those unwanted animals. The question about irrigation: will the irrigation runoff travel and leach into the boundaries of the homes adjacent to the nursery and cause damage to their yards or their shrubbery? Is the nursery going to disinfect the runoff water? Are they going to capture the infected runoff water or use landscape features like vegetation buffers, grassed waterways, and collection structures to slow the velocity of the water of the runoff and filter and direct movement of runoff to collection basins? This contaminated runoff could be detrimental to the vegetation and the plant life of that entire footprint we're talking about. The second part of my item I'd like to talk about is really the traffic. We've already discussed a lot of that, but sometimes we have issues with buses running late, and it may be because of all the traffic that's in that area. Certainly, these over-the-road trucks loaded with trees are going to cause an additional traffic backup. And it was mentioned I think in the plan that, and I may be wrong about this, that there would be an average of 7 visitors per day at the nursery. Well, the parking lot seems to have about 35 spaces, which suggests there might be a lot more than 7 visitors per day. I don't know what the formula is to determine how many spaces you need, but it certainly suggests there might be more than 7 visitors per day at the nursery. And on that same note, I understand it's now being called the Windcrest Commercial Plaza. Plazas suggest to me there's going to be a multitude, not a multitude, but multiple stores at a plaza. You just don't have one single building and call it a plaza. So the question is, does the proposal allow for additional stores being there, or businesses, or can they sublet to other businesses? I think we've beaten traffic to death, but if you have that truck out there in the middle of Saundersville Road, trying to get a 30,000-pound or 80,000-pound truck moving, and it doesn't move very, very fast if you're trying to get it to move out of the way. And I don't know how many of you live around Saundersville Road or Winston Hills Parkway, but we mentioned that traffic between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. is just a nightmare there. And then you have the train comes by, and you really see some congestion when that train comes by and stops that traffic in 3 different directions. Now, we've been told, I've heard that we must put something there or someone will choose it for us. Something has to go. We've been told that. We don't have a choice. Something has to go in that area. So it should benefit our neighborhood and not someone else.
Manny, 30 seconds.
I've spoken to everyone in our neighborhood, and they're opposed to the project. Board members, respectfully, I can't believe if your houses were backed up to this project, you'd allow the proposals to go forward at the damaging and destructive expense to your neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, board members.
Manny, thank you. Daniel Stevens, Windcrest Way.
To the residents of Windcrest, please don't egg my house after I read this, okay? My name is Daniel Stevens. I live at 114 Windcrest Way. Greetings and good evening to Mayor Clary and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Before I begin, I would like to say thank you for what each of you do to serve our wonderful city, and also thank you for allowing me to speak on this matter. Several months ago, the neighbors of Windcrest assembled in great proportion in the same room and clearly spoke against an extended stay as well as a gas station. I was one of those people and was even quoted in the newspaper, likely because of my heavy viewpoints that were completely rational and logical. It was clear in the great number in attendance, as well as a spoken disdain against the development of those previously proposed businesses, that it was a terrible option for the neighbors and the city. Now, here we are with quite the option, a zoning option and proposition of a high-end nursery selling $1,000 trees. That sounds like Hendersonville to me. My home sits almost directly across from this plot of land. What this means is that our family will be one of the families that will actually be directly impacted by this nursery. And I can say with the utmost confidence that the engineer, developer, and owner have done everything in their power to make the neighbors in this neighborhood happy. They have listened to several of the recommendations. When I encouraged them to be completely transparent about everything they were doing and they planned to do, they did it. If we don't take this opportunity, I don't know that you could ever do anything better. If someone has a better idea, please let me know. Honestly, I'm afraid of what it could be if this doesn't work out. I would much rather rest at night knowing we have a high-end nursery for the next 15 years for the neighborhood. This is logical and rational thinking. Truth is, you're never going to make everyone happy, and you're never going to get everyone on board. In a previous Planning Commission meeting, they clearly said that the plot of land will be something more commercial in the future. So we know that is where it's heading. Given those facts, why would you not want a high-end nursery with trees and a building that looks exactly like the rest of Hendersonville? If you wanted to keep the neighborhood and less traffic, why did you move to Windcrest in the first place when the bypass backs up right to it? In closing, I'm in support of this plan 100%. For several reasons. The transparency of the engineer, developers, and owner of the property. They listen and they follow through. The tax revenue that would come through in having this. The traffic that's brought in by the Moon Valley, I think it's a moot point. I don't think you could really impact the traffic a whole lot more than it's already impacted. And I think this business says Hendersonville in our town is a perfect spot for something like this. How can you complain about a business selling trees, but you're wanting a barrier of more trees? It just doesn't make sense to me. Last but not least, I'm scared of what it could be in the future if this doesn't go through. Thank you for your time.
Daniel, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Hodges, y'all signed up. Okay. Thank y'all. Beth Pickle, Windcrest Court.
Good evening. I spoke last month, Beth Pickle, 113 Windcrest Court. I spoke last month kind of in favor, but like several others have said, we've kind of been given the impression that it's going to be commercial no matter what we want. And I think that the prospect of having a gas station and an extended stay hotel scared some of us. And it's like, well, we don't want that, so we better accept this. I was surprised last month to hear several of the aldermen express a desire to keep it a residential and to not rezone it. So, you know, in a perfect world, I think that that would be my preference. If it is going to be rezoned, though, I do have, again, the same concerns I expressed last month and that several others have said about the traffic. But one thing that when I left, my understanding, and I could be wrong, hopefully they'll clarify this, but it's my understanding that the only traffic coming off of Saundersville Road are the large flatbed trucks. The rest of the traffic will be coming through our entrance, and it won't be pickup trucks and cars. It will be large trucks picking up those huge trees. And I'm very concerned about what that's going to do to getting in and out of the entrance and having those large trucks going in and out. So I'd like some clarification on that. My other concern is that, if the business does come here, we wish them well. We hope they succeed and they're there for a very long time. But once it's zoned commercial, if they don't stay, then what kind of restrictions are there? We learned the hard way. We weren't here when the promises were made about maintaining the entrance, but once those people had moved on, we had very little ability to make the people who came behind them stand behind those agreements. So I'm very concerned about if they don't stay there, then what else is there? So I like the idea of the pared down list of what could go there, but, I'm very concerned about the traffic and them using our entranceway with large trucks to come in, and what that's going to do to our safety. So, thank you.
Beth, thank you. Annika Montel.
Thank you, Boma, for listening and considering our opinions as residents of the Windcrest community. So I live at 103 Huntington Place with Roger, my husband, and our property is right back on 1065 Saundersville Road. So we bought this property some years back, knowing that the property next to us was zoned for SR1, suburban residential, low density, and not commercial property. If we had known that the city of Hendersonville could just change the zoning map as they wanted, we would have really thought twice about investing our hard-earned money into our house. We know that most likely a zone change to commercial zoning will lower our property value significantly. The owner of Saundersville Road knows that it is residential property and has been for 30 years. And it was never meant to be a high-density property. It is the responsibility of the owner to plan according to the SR1 zone. Back then in 1995, the residents and the town of Hendersonville really appreciated green land and space for the residents. Back then, the town established land use and zoning maps as an important layouts for the town and its future. Residents had beautiful, safe, quiet neighborhoods, while businesses with their commercial zoning had their area where they could operate more freely, independently, away from family communities. The town had ethical rules that allowed for families to have a high standard of living, away from traffic and dangerous situations, and at the same time, businesses had their district to expand and make the town grow. The zoning should be as important now as it was back then. Should the 10,000s of residents of Hendersonville who have invested their last dollars in a house constantly be afraid that the land developers and landowners can simply get their plans approved from the town without any consideration for neighboring residents? If this plan is approved, it sets a very dangerous precedent for Hendersonville. This project we talk about today is very important for the entire Hendersonville, not only for us in Windcrest, and its future, not only for the Windcrest community. Yes, if BOMA approves a zoning change from low density to high commercial density to satisfy landowners and developers, there will be a ripple effect that will certainly lower the quality of life in this beautiful town. We will be very disappointed, and so will many of us. Many residents at Windcrest did not even know that this was on the agenda. They never got the green card in the mail like they used to do. They didn't even know about it, and they were very disappointed and scared. It seems obvious that only some selected people got invited to the golf course up the road by the Moon Nursery, and a few others got a little letter from the Planning Commission. I thought this was a democratic society and that we all have a right to hear and raise our opinions. Is this how the town treats their taxpayers and lifelong residents?
Annika, I'm going to stop you. One of the rules we have is not to question the motives of others.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. So I'm not talking about the traffic because you talk so much about the traffic. That is horrendous. I also want to talk about, we're also having the Moon Nursery right at our property line. This will be a very busy area with a lot of activities, 7 days a week, guys, and even more so outside the regular hours, early mornings and late evenings. There will be trucks coming and going, delivering trees to the nursery and to customers who can afford the Moon Nursery's $1,000 trees. On the website, it says that new trees coming every day. There will be an increase of loud sounds from engines, forklifts, beeping sounds that shouldn't be turned off because regulations. There may be people talking, music playing, holiday coming up.
30 seconds.
And during the weekend, they are most busy, and we will have a noisy backyard. And the buffer zone, remember, the trees take 30 years to grow. That will not benefit us. Well, God willing. Well, we are also aware of the fertilizer fungicides that are used to plant, and that the rain is coming. It's coming down in the soil, in the brooks, and it poison our plants, our animals.
Annika, thank you. The next person we have is Roger Mentel, Huntington Place.
There's anything like that, so don't worry. Believe me, I really do think all of you have the best interests of the community at heart, so thank you for being here, okay? The truth is, we never thought it would be necessary for homeowners to continually defend their homes from the encroachment of landowners that might be requesting zone changes. Of course, this is where we are right now, and the truth is, this proposal is going to interfere with the Windcrest development and also the other nearby developments, which there are a lot of, in a way that will not only endanger the quality of life, but also they're going to add a traffic debacle, as we've already said, to an already hazardous situation. There's traffic accidents almost every other day there. But it will also alter the character of a development which has been designed specifically for residential purposes. In doing so, as my wife said, it also sets a dangerous precedent for Hendersonville. Now, you know, if this town can suddenly just decide to rezone residential land to suit landowners at the expense of its residents, how can Hendersonville continue to be claimed to be a great place to live? And by the way, we do think it's great. We wouldn't be here. We love it. Okay, most people we spoke with in Windcrest did not even know about this zone change, and they never received an invitation to the neighborhood meeting that was held with the nursery. And everybody with whom I've discussed this matter has said they would rather not have anything on the land. But since some are convinced that something will be built in the area, they're standing up for a commercial development which they really do not want. And, you know, when people are gripped by fear, the reality is they tend to make impulsive decisions that they often regret later. Now, personally, I would like to see people in Boma standing up for what is right instead of trying to placate those who might be, you know, impinging on the rights of residents that need to protect their homes. The truth is, many landowners and investors do not reside in the areas they purchase and sell, so they have no real interest or connection to those communities. And as a result, they're not really concerned with whatever negative consequences may result from these developments. Now, to be fair, even though we were not invited to the neighborhood meeting, later on, some of the people at Moon Nursery have spoken with me about the situation, okay? And they say they want to be good neighbors, and of course that may be true, and I certainly hope they are. But whether or not they are good neighbors, the truth is this nursery does not belong in such close proximity with a residential community. Now, the other thing is, somebody was talking about buffers, and I was speaking to the engineer there. The buffers, they're saying they're offering evergreens, but evergreens take between 6 and 30 years to mature, so we're not going to get really a buffer there. Now, is this fair, do you think, that we don't even get a real buffer there? And again, I'm not casting aspersions against this company. My main problem was the town decision to rezone, okay? Now, since the nursery was already rejected when it was proposed on Main Street, with findings of TDOT, then, obviously it doesn't belong in Windcrest, which is a residential community with a traffic intersection, which already has a history of numerous traffic accidents. The nursery is now being considered because the proposal doesn't fall within the jurisdiction of TDOT. Now, it's extremely irresponsible, I think, for Hendersonville to support a plan which probably would not have passed with TDOT and would endanger the lives of its residents and also anyone driving through the area. There are many other areas in Hendersonville which could accommodate this proposal, and these locations would not encroach on residents because they would not be near a residential community. And, the other thing is, in the last meeting, somebody was saying they're going to get approximately $90,000, which they said would pay probably for 2 police cars. Now, I wonder how many additional traffic accidents, injuries, and hospital bills residents and people driving through the area would have to face as a result of this decision. I have no doubt it would be far more than the cost of 2 police cars. So I hope that, some of these things resonate with you. Do you think it's fair that this should impinge upon our neighborhood this way? I'm not even just talking about my house, but everybody in the community with this traffic problem. I hope you will not support irresponsible zone changes like this and stand up instead for the preservation of our residential community. One thing is for sure. Since TDOT has no control over the situation, if Hendersonville now approves this plan when all the additional traffic issues, accidents, injuries, and fatalities happen, guess what? The town is going to have egg on its face and blood on its hand. I don't think this is the future you want for our beautiful Hendersonville. It's certainly not the future I want for it.
30 seconds, Roger.
Okay, no problem. I must remind you, guidelines relating to the amendment 484 say there will be no significant adverse effect upon adjoining property owners unless such effect can be justified by overwhelming public good or welfare. Well, obviously, there will be a significant adverse effect upon adjoining property owners, and since the entire community will also be adversely affected, especially by the traffic, this threat cannot be considered to be in the overwhelming public good or welfare, so it cannot be justified. So, we're living in Windcrest.
Roger, thank you. The next person we have is Scott Denny on Windcrest Way.
Hello, my name is Scott Denny. I live at 121 Windcrest Way, and I want to speak firmly in favor of this development. I have seen pictures of this development all over the nation, and I got a feeling you all have seen them too. They are high-quality developments, and they're selling high-quality products. Yes, they will rezone commercial, but I would rather have it rezoned commercial for 15 years as a nursery than to possibly see what might be built there as residential properties and what goes on at those things at night, especially when they become rentals, and they will. Who wants to live on an entrance to the bypass? And that's what will be built there. So I'm in favor of it, and it will enhance the entrance to our neighborhood. They will also enhance the brick structure entrance to our neighborhood. They will add lights. They will put our name on them. Our neighborhood will be better in the end. We were all against the commercial buildings that went up there a few years ago. In hindsight, we're not against it anymore. It turned out it was fine. It looks fine. And they have a lot more cars coming on their property through our neighborhood every day than this nursery will. And it's caused no trouble. That property is going to be developed before the traffic on Saundersville Road is ever fixed. The property is going to be developed. This development, yes, we don't need more traffic, but if you were as concerned about the traffic, you wouldn't have approved all the developments out Saundersville Road in the first place. So we've got the traffic situation. That'll be taken care of in due time, but this is a good development for Windcrest. Thank you.
Scott, thank you. Next we have Vincent Berkey of Highland Ridge.
Good evening. Vincent Berkey, 114 Highland Ridge. I am absolutely opposed to the rezoning of the acreage at one of the most dangerous intersections in Hendersonville, Saundersville Road and Windcrest Way. The city does not have the infrastructure to support this, and the city administration continually drags their feet with these much-needed improvements. We should worry about making the quality of life better for the residents that live here before we worry about overdeveloping even more. This happened in the past, as has been alluded to earlier. In the summer of 2018, the community met here at City Hall to oppose Milton Curtis building in the front of the neighborhood. The majority of the people who live in Windcrest then opposed this rezoning, and the constituents were ignored. Because of this, I was on the fence about even showing up tonight. After what happened in the past, I, along with quite a few of my neighbors, have such little faith in our elected officials. We understand that BOMA certainly puts the developers in front of the will of the people, and also struggles with the concept of doing the right thing by their constituents. This has happened so many times in the past, and nothing has happened yet to change my mind or others. Just as a reminder, with this same scenario happened in 2018, the very next election cycle, those aldermen that supported it were voted out within, 8 months, 6 months? Please remember that you work for us. not the developers. To the aldermen, I ask you specifically, I'm not sure what your personal relationship is with this landowner, with this prospective
Vincent,
buyer.
no.
I'm not sure. I
No.
just said that,
You're not going that direction.
okay? But just take your professional relationship with us, your constituents, into account. That's all I got.
Thank you. Next, we have J.C. Kirkham, Eddington Drive.
Hey, good evening. It's actually, I appreciate all that you guys do here in Hendersonville. I know that you guys do a lot of work to keep our town looking and the way it is, so much appreciation. I am Jackie Kirkham, and I'm actually a native of Hendersonville, literally born at Hendersonville Hospital. And as an employee now of HCA, was pretty proud to see that one of our facilities just received that Beautification Award, so that was pretty awesome. So my perspective, I actually, as he mentioned, lived on Eddington Drive, which is not in either of these in Windcrest, but I commute to Nashville daily down that road. And so obviously the congested traffic that I've experienced time and time again is a big concern for me, not only just like the delay in the trains, but also the delay from the trains and then the commuters going back and forth, school commuting, but also if this is, it sounds like everyone's voting, you're voting for rezoning of commercial, but what is the guarantee? Because the nursery does sound pretty low impact, sounds like a pretty easy thing versus the gas station that seemed to be proposed beforehand. But what is the guarantee that this development would be what goes into that location once it's rezoned commercial? I think that would be my bigger question. And what is the plan for infrastructure once that takes place to widen that road with the increased traffic? Is there a guarantee for that would be indeed a nursery for some time to come, or would it, once it got rezoned commercial, that there would be something else that nursery pulls out, and then and now we're back to the gas station, or back to the car wash, or the next 10-minute oil that we see all over town. So those would be my greater concerns versus just the nursery, as many of them have pointed out that are for this. Seems like pretty low impact and what you would want if you were able to choose what that development would be. But I think that's a bigger concern, is what would really go there once it's rezoned commercial. So that would be my question. So thank you, guys.
Jackie, thank you. Christine Gardner, Huntington Place.
I'm Christine Garner, 107 Huntington Place. I have a family of 4, my husband and my 2 daughters, 11 and 12, right up against the tree line on the other side of where this property would go. So we're very interested in this, and I've been very active in terms of talking with the developers, talking with other neighbors, asking questions here, asking questions of my aldermen, and making sure that we're doing the right thing for our family, but also kind of looking out for the neighborhood. So I've had some people express concerns, and I move those questions along and try to get answers so that we've got the information we need. And then these meetings are very helpful. We appreciate that you take the time to listen. As I mentioned in the last meeting, we have all but one of the homes on the tree line are in support of this project. So I received support all the way from 101 Huntington Place. So this is the entire tree line. 101 Huntington Place, 105, 107, 109, 111, 113, and also the surveys who are right around the corner, just barely off of this tree line. Everyone is in support of this. Now, is it because when we moved in, we were dying to get a nursery behind our house? No. I love the fact that there was just a field there. But guess what? Hendersonville is a really great place to live. It is a great place to sell high-end trees because Hendersonville can afford it. Gallatin can afford it. People in Franklin might even come up to see what we have. People in Nashville. It is a great place to sell a $1,000 tree. If I had to pick what was back there, it's definitely not a motel, it's not a gas station, it's not a car wash, all of these things that have been mentioned, but this could work. And so I've asked a million questions, I've fully explored this, and I feel like as Ryan said, if my neighbor in the back is a bunch of trees with a cute little brick building where they do their work out of, I think that's a pretty decent alternative, especially given that the city gets about $90,000 a year to help support what we need here. So when you're only talking 8 or 9 trips a day, and that was the number that we were given statistically, that is less traffic than if it does stay homes. I don't know if everyone heard that from the last meeting, but the number of homes that can go there are going to create more traffic than this little high-end nursery. It's not a nursery for flowers and little bushes and all the stuff that we go to. This place is not going to have a lot of visitors because it's a totally different level of nursery. It's strictly high-end trees that are being sold there. We were given the information that it may have, I think it was like 2 trucks a month delivering trees. There's going to be a bunch in the beginning because they've got to develop inventory, right? So there's going to be a whole bunch of trucks coming in, putting in the trees, and then periodically refilling the inventory with trucks coming in to do that off of Saundersville. Traffic. We already had heard last meeting that they're adding another lane on Saundersville that's going to help with that traffic. There will be the customers coming in through our neighborhood, but again, that's not going to be a lot of traffic. And if you're really worried about traffic, you see all the homes that are being built further up Saundersville. There's hundreds of homes being built up there. Hundreds of homes. So if you think this tiny little business is going to impact traffic compared to when all those homes are built, this is not going to make a dent in traffic. You're not even going to notice the amount of traffic impact from this business. As far as noise, it's not going to be noisy. They've already said that they're going to use lights for their forklifts instead of the beeping. You only have those giant semis coming in a couple times a month delivering those trees. So you're not going to have a bunch of noise there. So I just feel like, you know, no one wanted to have something go back there. I'm not dying to have something go back there, but I do feel the safety of having this little business with giant trees back there is a pretty good plan. We've got our tree line. Behind the tree line is going to be rows of trees. So we're probably not even going to see anything back
Christine,
there.
30 seconds.
I also wanted to mention that on our Facebook page, we do have the support of a lot of people who have said they think it's a good idea, just haven't been able to represent. And those names are Tasha Valentine, Jana Parrish Llewellyn, Jason Evans, Scott Denny, who's here tonight, Jeffrey Lee, Camille Bowden, Jan Goodhouse, Ryan and Jacqueline Page, Jeff Anderson, and many others.
Christine, thank you. So Alderman Waters, so since we're just in citizen comments, if you have a point of order to bring up, you can bring that up. But discussing this right now is going to have to wait for a little while. Okay, so go ahead.
Naming off people that she knows, and she's got their names and addresses. They all for it. If they all for it, why don't they come up here and talk like you're doing?
That's not really a subject of a point of order. I think that's something when we get to the item.
That's the way I feel about it.
Gerald Barrett, Winbrook Trace.
And I thought deer was controversial. So, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd also like to thank my alderman and the mayor for listening and answering questions. We don't always have to agree. We don't always have to have things go in our favor, but it's always great when you're heard. And I think that's the most important thing. So I applaud of you tonight and all of us for working together like this. I think our whole country could take a lesson from Hendersonville. Okay, so I'm neither for or against this, fundamentally speaking. What I am is asking that we place a pause while we really understand the dynamics that are going to happen with traffic. Okay, it's not more residential traffic. Commercial operations introduce a different traffic dynamic than more cars. Okay, I don't know that we fully understand what that looks like yet. I do believe that, from my knowledge of them, that there are 18-wheelers coming in there, people picking up and moving these trucks are there. We really need to understand the ingress, egress, and how this is going to impact an already well-documented horrendous intersection. You know, we've already got 15 pounds of groceries in a 10-pound bag. If we put 5 more pounds of groceries in this bag, it's going to just continue to burst, okay? Excuse me for using my Alabama analogies, but, you know, I'm aware of the discussions of whether this is the right business, whether there's more traffic or less traffic, and, you know, I can't speak to that. I don't have enough knowledge of that. What I do know is that it's a very different dynamic. Sorry for repeating myself there. From 1997 to 2014, I lived in Gwinnett County, Georgia. At the time I lived there, Gwinnett County was in the top 10 growth areas of the United States for 11 years in a row. I watched progress or development outpace infrastructure dramatically. And by the time I left there in 2014, it was horrible. It's far worse than we've got today. The folks were heading in a direction that's not good. So the only thing I'm really asking for here is for us to take a step back and really understand what these traffic dynamics are. Have an engineer come in and really understand it. Is it traffic circles? Is there some methodology that can be done to mitigate some of these concerns? Is this a step toward a comprehensive program? Obviously, we're not going to get there with this, but I want to make sure that we have really thoroughly vetted this before we run down the road. That's all I'm really asking for. Again, I'm just encouraging that we table approval until such a time as this analysis and a subsequent action plan can be completed. And once again, I thank you all for your time.
Gerald, you have 2 minutes. You want to talk about deer? I said, you got 2 minutes. Do you want to talk about it? Thank you. Sure. So Brian DeMoy, you signed up on a different sheet for citizen comments. Do you want to speak now on this, or do you want to speak citizen comments about something else? Okay, thank you. So that's the last person we have for the public hearing. So now we're on to the minutes. I'm going to entertain a motion that we approve the October 8th, 2024 minutes that were provided to you in your packet. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the minutes as they were provided to you, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. And then next round of citizen comments. Brian, you're the only one who signed up. Do I need to read the rules again? Okay, good to hear. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Brian DeMoy. I'm at 146 Macy Drive. I'm here to talk about the proposal for a so-called, I guess, Norman Creek Phase 3. I was very concerned at the planning meeting about a month ago where a plan to add homes to Norman Creek by a new builder that would make an additional 31 homes to our neighborhood. We were told that they can't change this final plan if they add these after the planning meeting, because a final plan is a final plan. You can't change that. Because my concern was that it was originally allowed for up to 71 homes, but the builder, Castle Rock, said, we only want to do 31, not 70, so this is way better. My concern was, what if they want to change this and say, well, you know what, we can't sell the 31 lots, so let's make it back to the 70, we'll cut it down, we'll put condos back there, we can do whatever we want. But I was told you can't change a final plan. Well, so I did some research. 2016, Pulte Homes decided to make an amendment to, or make an adjustment to what was originally proposed for that land. It was originally proposed for 194 homes. Pulte proposed a plan for Norman Creek, which would make it the 92 homes it is today. That was approved. Then there was a preliminary development plan on December 13th, 2016 for the 92 homes with a plan that shows Macy Drive, not a through street, but a cul-de-sac. That was approved. Then a final plan where they had to make adjustments was finally approved on January 24th of 2017, making Norman Creek 92 homes, and with Macy Drive, the road that I live on, a cul-de-sac and not a through street. So if we can't change a final plan, how are there now going to be a through street through a cul-de-sac that was voted on and approved? There were some addendums. There was 2A and 2B on December 3rd of 2019, voted on by the board and approved to make Phase 2 of Norman Creek 2A and 2B. It was for a Keats Court down at the end, that was a difficult time to get through. They were having some issues with the bridge to get back there. There was also some other homes at the end of Norman Way that needed to be built, but they had to wait for a connecting road on Fountain Brook. So the board voted to make that Phase 2A and B. Finally, they added the C for more issues with Keats Court. But that was the end of Norman Creek. There is no Phase 3 of Norman Creek. There are 14 homes on Macy Drive. You talk about traffic. So they want to add 31 homes. We paid extra to live at the end of a cul-de-sac street. We were bought and shown final plans that were approved that that road would be a cul-de-sac. And now it's being told, no, it's a through street, and there will be 31 additional homes attached to a neighborhood that was not supposed to be 23 homes. It's supposed to be 92. That's what we bought into. That's the community we wanted to be a part of. We made that decision. There are 15 members in front of me right now. Can you imagine if you all lived on the same street? And then you were being told that now there's going to be an additional 62 cars driving past where your kids play, where they weren't supposed to be there. And they were told by the board that the final plan was, it's a cul-de-sac. It's a dead end. The other issue is, no one in our neighborhood was brought to the attention of this idea to put a neighborhood back there. No one. Because it was originally going to be Norman Farm Estates. But instead, when the builder went to the neighborhood of Norman Farms and addressed only 3 homeowners in Norman Creek, because apparently, according to the law, they only have to reach out to the amount of people who live within 500 feet of where the building will begin, where the road will kick in. So they didn't reach out to the other 89 homeowners. I only know because my mother-in-law is in one of those 3 homes. So they had a meeting. Norman Farm said, we don't want it. So they didn't even try to go to the community to say it was going to have a separate road there. They came right to Norman Creek and they went real fast.
30 seconds.
Our neighborhood didn't even get a chance to go to a planning meeting or a sub-meeting or any of that. We had one planning meeting which happened a week after, and now here we are. So I ask you all to pause, think about what was originally agreed upon, and have the builder find a new way in. Not saying they can't build on it, but they shouldn't be allowed to change what we bought and tell us now it's a through street and it's an additional to your neighborhood. Thank you.
Brian, thank you. We have nothing on consent agenda. We're moving on to ordinance and resolutions. The first item we have is second reading of ordinance 2024-18. This is an ordinance rezoning 4.84 acres located at the intersection of Saundersville Road and Windcrest Way from suburban residential low density to general commercial plan development to be known as Windcrest Moon Nursery Commercial Plaza. Alderman Martin. You make a motion?
Motion.
We have a second from Alderman Dixon. Alderman Martin, do you want to speak on this? Or wait, either one?
I'll wait a little bit.
Okay. Alderman Garten, go ahead.
I have questions if the developers are willing to answer some questions.
So without objection, we will suspend the rules. Gentlemen, you don't have to answer any questions, but I think we had a couple that were brought up by some folks who spoke earlier, and I think we might have some questions that could stand to be answered. Keith, could you be close by also? Okay. So without objection, we're going to suspend the rules and hear from folks. Anybody else, Jenna?
Okay. Actually, Keith, I have one question. I'll start with Keith.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Keith. How are you?
Good.
My first question is the property across from Windcrest, the 15 acres, what is that currently zoned for?
The property directly across from Windcrest Way, that is currently zoned neighborhood commercial. So the uses that are allowed on that are similar to commercial. There's some of the different commercial uses that aren't allowed in neighborhood commercial. It's a little bit less, but some of the different uses that would be allowed there across the street on that particular acreage, I think I've actually, would be like a cultural facility, health and fitness center, call center, office, retail goods, a daycare center, a bank, general business services, a medical clinic or rehab facility, personal services, and a limited restaurant if it was a part of a strip center, a sit-down restaurant.
Okay.
And so those are some of the uses that are allowed and the zoning that's there. Now, across the street, that's where Windcrest, but where Tamaris is. Then across there is one of the future phases of Millstone, and then all of that is commercial, and I think there's actually some mini warehouses and things like that that are behind that.
I'm just trying to get an idea of how much
Yeah.
more traffic that we could anticipate
Yeah.
when that area is developed. Okay, thank you, Keith.
You're welcome. Thank you.
One thing also that I just wanted to make a note of, in our packets on page 40, we have the emailed public comments here, and I just wanted to note that there were 4 listed, and they say who was for, who was against it, but there's actually 6 in here. And these are not emails that, you know, would have came in today or yesterday. These were previous emails. But the one that was for it comes from Hillary Bonham from Tennessee Investment Partners in Gallatin, which is the property owner of that 15 acres across the way. And the rest of these have been against it, including the 2 that are not listed on here. So I just want to make a note of that everyone did see that in our packets. Okay, so questions for the developer? If you're willing to come up.
And guys, when you speak, please give your name and what your association is.
Yes. Hi, Ben Page, here with Peak Development Partners.
Okay. One of the things I want to revisit from our last meeting is the gate. So is the gate electric or manual for the semi-truck entrance?
It can be either.
It can be either.
Yeah.
So if it's electric, how do we know when would that be activated? Like when the trucks come through, like how quick is the response to activating that gate? How much time will the truck have sitting before
Jim Dix is here from
Okay.
Moon Valley, so he can probably speak to this better than me.
Jim Dix, Moon Valley. All of our trucks have trackers in them.
Okay.
So we know well in advance when they're on their way. They have special radios that communicate with each nursery in addition to the tracking device. It's quick. I mean, you know, they say, look, we're a quarter mile out, open the gate, and we have guys standing there so that individual traffic can't come in and out. We kind of guide them in. So it's pretty fast.
So it could be electric, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The size of the trees, I mean, I'm hearing how like big and beautiful these trees are. Can someone tell me how big they are? How tall are they?
Excuse me. Are you talking about the buffer trees?
The big trees that you're going to sell, like the live oaks?
They go up to 48-inch box, so they could be 10 feet, 11 feet.
Okay.
You know, the trees at the buffer trees that everybody's referring to, they're accurate. They do take time to grow, but there is a method to the madness on how you plant them so that they don't overcrowd. But they sit in 24-inch boxes. They're green 365 days out of the year. And they're about 6 to 8 feet.
Okay.
Right in the box.
6 to 8 feet in the box.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And then you said you will have around 13 semis come in on average per year?
You know, it really depends on the sales of the unit, obviously. It's replenishing. The good news is we do have a nursery in Franklin, and you know, if we need trees, they could flip them back and forth on smaller trucks. The initial stocking of the nursery is probably the most critical as far as trucks coming in to set the nursery up. We invest over $1 million in product on the initial go-in, and then, but we're constantly turning those and you know, throughout the year.
Okay.
So you know, you can expect a couple of trucks a month to replenish.
Okay. So when I look, I noticed on your website that you talked about cranes, having to have cranes to move some of these trees because they are so big. And when I look at social media pages, and I see these, and I know you probably can't see it from there, but they're huge, and they're the huge cranes loading these. So, you know, my question is, when these trucks are brought in and these have to go, they're going to be delivered, you guys deliver them to the buyers and plant them. How are you getting these out? What size of truck are you using for that purpose?
You know, it really varies. The cranes that you're referring to those are $15,000 to $20,000 trees. They're huge.
Yes.
And, you know, obviously the boom truck with the cranes on them are usually necessary to, if somebody wants to load those in their backyard, we literally have to lift it above the roof line and guide it over. What you're looking at there, we don't normally typically do that in a 4-acre site on a nursery. We just don't.
Okay, so you won't have to house your cranes there, because I noticed they're branded, so that some of them may be rentals, I noticed, but some are also branded with Moon Valley. So I just wanted to make sure there's not going to be cranes at the back.
Yeah, we
no,
we don't typically carry that stock on our nurseries. If somebody really wants to sit down and design architecturally the ambiance of their backyard, you know, we're pulling those trees from afar, probably Houston, and driving them up specifically for that job.
So the big ones, they're not going to be
You're
on the
not
property?
you're not going to have those trees in our nursery, not here in Hendersonville.
Okay. I think that was some of the excitement, was the big trees. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what other questions I have here. So with your hours, I appreciate that you were going to modify them from 7:30 to, I can't remember what time most of the stores closed, but you're going to modify them from 10 to 6, which I do like that for the homeowners.
Yes, ma'am.
And traffic. What about deliveries? I mean, you guys load up and deliver. What time of day will those deliveries start? Because landscapers, they start pretty early, right? Typically.
Yeah,
on a hot summer day?
we're not a aggregate and a mulch shop where they're going to show up at 6:30 in the morning and they're going to load up aggregate rock or mulch. We don't even get into that business. That's not our business. We're
Right,
into the
but
tree
when-
business. But if, you know, we typically would have people on staff early in the morning only to water, and what our watering system maybe didn't cover, or maybe there was a snag in the line, but they're going to go around and check each tree to make sure that they're properly watered.
Okay, so before your 10 o'clock opening, you're not going to have the trucks being loaded to be delivered?
You know, they could be there at 8:30, but they're not there at 6:30, 7:30 in the morning. I mean, think of it this way. We typically run sunrise to dusk. So in the winter hours, when it gets lighter later and it gets darker earlier, that's what you can kind of count on in this business. The holiday months of December, November, around Thanksgiving and December, we don't shut down, but we might as well shut down. I mean, people are too busy with family, with holiday spirit, that they're not out buying trees. So those are our two absolute slowest months, and January. And here in Hendersonville.
Hold on, Jim. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I was still listening.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry, excuse me. You know, this is a different region for us. When we moved to Franklin, it was a whole new experience for us to run our business. I mean, we grew up for almost a quarter of a century. You know, we started in Arizona, and then we moved to California, and so it was really easy for us. We have 17 farms. 15 of them are in California, and so the product is very similar between the two. But when you move east, and you have to deal with cold weather, frost, snow, it's just a different method of doing business. And so, you know, we're making those adjustments and we've learned a lot being in Franklin. November, December, and January are just awful months for business, and so there's very little traffic. And when you really consider on an average basis, daily. We have 9 people show up at our Franklin unit, and it does big numbers, almost $8 million a year. But the per purchase check that people are buying is very large. What I'm trying to say is we don't sell a lot of quantity. We sell the quality of the tree and less of them, but they're bigger, more expensive. We sell over 300,000 trees. We have 1,500 species. 80% of what we sell, we grow ourselves. So we nurture them right from seedlings, and we do care for them, but they're expensive.
Alderman Garden, anything else?
Not right now. I
Okay.
may come back with some more questions.
Okay, thank you. Alderman
Thank you.
Dixon.
Thank you so much. You may sit down. I'm taking my discussion into a whole another direction. Tonight, we heard from 15 neighbors, and seems to be that it was 11 to 4, 11 being against and 4 being for. And I appreciate every one of your comments. I really do, and I appreciate even those who came here just to be here to represent. Setting in our emails, all of our emails, are many, many other emails that have come over the weekend and this week. And the majority, as I tried to read them, was against. We had many roll in at 5 o'clock, and some of us probably haven't even had time to read them because we're in committee. But I did vote no last reading. And my concern right now is some of the comments that came in through some of those emails over a feeling of uneasiness when dealing with some of our board members and that we're acting as a liaison between the homeowner and the developer. It's concerning to me. That's not our role. Don't get me wrong. I believe that Moon Valley Nursery would be a fine addition to Hendersonville. I really do. But it does give me pause, great pause, when we hear neighbors complain that our discussion in the first reading seemed off, almost as a scare tactic. And as I think about it, I have to take some responsibility. As I sat here, I didn't ask for a point of order. I could have done that. I could have pulled the discussion back to the ordinance itself instead of pontificating what could have went on that land and what could happen to it if we don't put the nursery there. No one up here has a crystal ball. If you do, let me know. I'd like to borrow it, but we don't. We should stick to the ordinance and let that be a lesson to us. Some of the comments we've received is that that you feel distrustful of some of the BOMA members, and I, for one, do not think that you should have to worry about that, distrusting us at all. For the large part, I believe we are trustworthy, but maybe some of our actions have brought on this outcome that I'm concerned about. I do not believe we have yet to hear the true and complete feeling from these neighbors about this rezone because of this. I'll be voting no again because of this reason. Let's give them some time without feeling of coercion or backed into a corner. And I ask this board to please consider what I'm saying. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Dixon, thank you. Keith, do you have a second? Where'd you go? Thank you. So we have a couple questions that came up. I think one from Jackie, another one from Gerald. If we approve this and the nursery doesn't move in, where are we?
If it's approved and and the nursery doesn't move in, then you have an approved combined development plan, so the rezoning is complete.
Okay.
It is limited to the uses, so that list of, I think, 6 or 7 uses, it's limited to those uses, including the use as a nursery.
Okay.
And then the plan development would be approved, like you see on the plan where there's a little building and then you have the parking and all of that. That would serve as the final development plan. If that was altered in any significant way, let's just say this building's pretty small, so if something else that was one of those approved uses wanted to come on there, like office or something, and it was, instead of whatever, 14 or 1,500 square feet, it was 10,000 square feet, then that would be a bigger building, a significantly bigger building, and so it wouldn't be in substantial compliance with what was approved. So that would have to come back with a revision, and had to go back to the Planning Commission, and then come back to BOMA for approval. But the uses would be, would already be approved.
Okay. So if somebody wants to add a use, what would they need to do?
If
we approve this, somebody wants to add a use, what would they need to do?
If they wanted to add a use, it wasn't one of those uses that are listed on this, then they would have to go back to the Planning Commission and request to add a use. And adding a use can be done at the Planning Commission. That wouldn't come back to BOMA.
Okay.
So,
Are there any, this sort of where I was thinking earlier when they were speaking, we have the small list of what the uses are proposed for this.
yes,
There are no conditional uses, are there?
no,
Okay, so those uses and those uses only, unless they go back to the Planning Commission.
That's
They couldn't go
correct.
to the Board of Zoning Appeals and add a use.
that's correct. And some of those uses, depending on the facility that you would want to build with it, may trigger something that's not in substantial compliance with the approved final development plan, and that would have to go back to the Planning Commission and come back to BOMA for approval of the amendment.
Okay, so do I have this correct? Is that we're approving a nursery for this site? If another nursery wants to go there, that's okay, or if something
Yeah.
within those uses that can use this site plan, that's okay?
That's correct.
Everything else would have to go back to the Planning Commission or come to us?
Yeah, well, yeah, any of those uses that could use the site plan similar to what they're going to do, something close to it, then they could just get a site plan and go forward. But yeah, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. I might have
Thank you.
something else in a minute.
Okay.
Alderman Sassy.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Ben, got some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I just want to say that, I've looked through these plans. I love the concept of a nursery. I don't know if this is the right place for it, but the business plan, the idea that you guys have here, it's absolutely gorgeous. If it doesn't pass tonight, I really hope that you guys try and find something else, another location for this somewhere in the city, because I would love to have this in the city. But that said, I do have some questions regarding what the citizens talked about tonight. One of the comments, and this is not the first time I'd heard it tonight, but I'd heard it on emails, and it actually had people call me and tell me this, was that they felt, and one of them used the word threatened, that there would be rental homes being put on this property. Do you know where that came from, by any chance? The
No.
idea of rental homes put on that property if this didn't pass?
No, I mean, we've talked about that you can develop single-family homes, and those could be built for sale or for rent with the current zoning.
Okay. Okay, great. Also, there was some mention from citizens that they didn't receive an invite to the meetings that you guys had.
Keith, that might be for you.
What's
That might be for Keith.
Yeah, it was their meeting they had with
gotcha.
with the
So yeah,
residents there.
the first thing that we did was we had a neighborhood meeting at Country Hills Golf Club, and that was just from a recommendation from one of the neighbors, and they just said that the easiest way to communicate with the neighborhood is through the neighborhood Facebook page, and so that's where that got posted, was that we were going to have a neighborhood meeting at Country Hills Golf Club.
Okay, so there wasn't a mailer, it was posted on the Facebook page, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, interesting, okay. And lastly, and then this one's just on a personal note, so thank you.
My engineer just added to, sorry, that,
No, it's okay.
that the information was provided to the aldermen as well as the Facebook page, so.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben,
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. That's all the questions I had, and I just had one other thing to mention personally is, there was a comment made that we don't listen. But I've seen this board time and time again hear the people that are up there, and the citizens that spoke to us changed our minds. I know that's happened to me more than once. And I know that's happened to other people on this board as well. So I just want the citizens of Hendersonville to know that what you think really matters to us. And we're going to listen to each and every one of them and weigh that into our decision. So that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Sassy, thank you. Alderman Bergdorf.
Thank you, Mayor. How you doing, Mr. Page?
Doing well,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for coming up here and speaking with us and be willing to do this.
Yes, sir.
We've heard a lot from our constituents, our neighbors, our friends, and our community that they're concerned. We've heard their concerns, and most of their concerns that I have heard, I wrote down some key terms: fear, scared, worried about what might happen in the future. One of the things that we try to do, and one of the things that we would want to do, I would want to do, is try and mitigate those concerns as best as we possibly can. So that's one statement. Number two, the question I've got is, maybe it's to the Planning Commission or anyone, what is our responsibility as a city to notify residents? Because we just heard from the last citizen comments individual, he said he wasn't notified of any zoning changes. What is our responsibility to that? Can anyone answer that to me?
Keith is probably the best one.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I will say this, I drive by there all the time. I've noticed the sign's been out there for probably 4 months.
There's a posted sign?
Yeah, but Keith can talk about
okay.
the actual notifications that we mail.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, we mail out notifications on the hearings to everyone that's within 250 feet. So if any property that's within 250 feet, we send out notice, but also where we get a lot of interest is we have our signs out there as well, and I think there might be 2. I know there's at least one, there may be 2. Somebody took one of them, I believe, and so we had to actually purchase another one. Somebody took one and knocked one down.
It was
They're
probably
pretty hefty signs. But the signs have a QR reader, and then you just scan it with your phone, and then it goes right to the zoning action page, which also lets you know of any public notice. And then also you can look at all the documents just like what you have in your packet. They can look at all of that stuff as well.
Okay.
And then we publish it. I believe we publish it as well. So it's published in the paper when it's a rezoning as well.
Okay, great. So there are various methods of communication.
Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the things that Metro does is that it sends out zoning, planning, zoning information probably within a square mile of, maybe I'm wrong, but it's a much larger footprint than 200 feet, because I get those all the time. And that gives us an invitation, it gives us a time and a date, and it gives us a map. I haven't seen these, but I'm just ours. I haven't seen what we've submitted to the residents. But I know that the one I receive from Metro is very informative, and with follow-up information, stuff like that. So I was wondering if the sponsor would mind deferring this vote to allow the citizens to have a better opportunity to know more about it, get a complete information, or is that something we don't want to do?
So that'd be Alderman Martin. Alderman Martin, if you want to answer now, if you want to come back after we
Sure,
have some more
yep.
discussion, that's okay too. But we would also want to ask our city attorney and probably Keith about the legalities of
absolutely,
that.
yes.
So,
Thank you very much.
Want to come back to you, or you want to speak now? Okay. So Alderman, thank you, Alderman Bergdorf. Alderman Robertson.
Sarah, Ms. Locke. It was one of the citizen comments talked about the heavy use of fertilization on the plants and the runoff of that fertilization. I see in the staff comments that there's going to be a retention pond. Are there creeks, blue water streams, or anything around this property that such runoff could affect the environment?
I'm going to defer to him. I do not recall offhand whether there is anything in this immediate vicinity.
CJ Merle, 615 Design Group, 1517 Hunt Club Boulevard, Gallatin, Tennessee. To answer your question, so there are no streams immediately adjacent to the site. However, we do discharge into the drainage infrastructure that's within Vietnam Veterans Boulevard. Our outfall is at the most southern end of this parcel. It drains into an existing head wall that drains south and ultimately gets into the creek that you see on the south side of Vietnam Veterans that goes under Saundersville Road. To answer the question about the detention pond, all of the irrigation, and Mr. Jim can likely expand on this some too. All the irrigation for these plants is all done through drip line. The drip lines are all in each individual boxes and basically water each plant individually. There's no sprays, and on top of that, there's no chemicals used in that water either. It's fed directly through an irrigation meter that is from my house utility district, that's separate from the domestic meter on site, and each one is individually irrigated. And from a stormwater standpoint, it's my opinion that because the site is filled with plants, there's actually going to be less runoff as opposed to something that was just fully paved, similar to the office buildings to the north. The detention pond on site will have, and also the stormwater infrastructure that we had to place on site, we will have to meet TDEC's water quality requirements and also the City of Hendersonville's water quality requirements and detention requirements, which means that we'll have to not only detain the water from leaving the site faster than what it did in pre-development states, but we will also have to treat the water and likely infiltrate portions of the water back into the ground to meet the TDEC requirements that have been placed on the MS4s around the Middle Tennessee area. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, so Sarah, they will have to get state of Tennessee environmental approval.
Yes, they would have to get a land disturbance permit, so they'll go through our approval process, our site plan approval process, and then they also have to get their TDEC permits.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, based on what you've heard so far, do you have any concerns about stormwater runoff from this business?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. The second question is, do you know the reasons why TDOT rejected their request? Was it on Main Street? Why did TDOT reject their request?
I was not involved with that particular conversation. I do not know the reasons why, or if it even was rejected.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, so thanks, sir. So we had 505 East Main Street under contract. That was just a site that Moon Valley was initially interested in. And that TDOT has jurisdiction over Main Street right there.
Right.
And so they just wanted, they were going to give us access, but they also wanted to use, they wanted us to use access from the neighboring development to the east. And Moon Valley just didn't like the access, and so we just decided to terminate that site ourselves.
So they didn't reject you, but they wanted you to modify your ingress egress.
Yeah, they wanted us to have access that we didn't really like, and so we just decided to terminate that site.
Okay. If only 8 or 9 vehicles a day, I can't imagine TDOT rejecting that or requiring a different traffic pattern if you just got 8 or 9 vehicles a day.
They didn't
coming
care
to the business.
They didn't care what went there. They just weren't going to give another curb cut on Main Street right there. They just they didn't care what was going there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, Sarah, that's all I have for you. Mr. Again, your name is Mr. You.
Hey, Mr. Page.
Page, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Mr. Page, is it true that 50% of your company is owned by a private equity company?
So that's actually Moon Valley Nurseries. So I own Peak Development Partners, and I'm under contract to purchase the property and be the landlord to Jim and his company, which is Moon Valley Nurseries.
Interesting. So, so for the nurseries, maybe I need to speak to someone from the nurseries. Is
Yes,
it
sir.
true that your company is 50% owned by a private equity company?
Yes, sir. Our
And the other
firm
50
was a privately held company for 23 years, and a couple of years back, They were, Moon Valley was purchased by a investment company out of New York called Stone Court.
Stone Court, yes. So 50% is owned by Stone Court and 50% is owned by what, the original owner of the company? Or
Well,
the,
there's shares.
Shares.
I can't actually tell you what the
Okay.
percentages is, but the lion's share of the business is owned by
Yeah.
a hedge fund out of New York. Yes, sir.
And my line of question is, I'm trying to look into the future. I'm trying to see what the future holds. And I do know that private equity firms, as should be, their number one concern is profit. And they turn over their holdings frequently to maximize that profit. So my question is this. Is you have your existing business model for 20 years, is that right?
Quarter century, 25.
25 years.
Yes, sir.
How likely is that business model to change if the private equity firm demands more return?
In what respect?
From large trees to more smaller plants that would generate more traffic, more traffic and more sales at the location.
I don't think that's driven by the equity partners. I think that's driven by the community. I think that's driven by what the consumer wants. I mean, we're in the tree business. That's what we're mostly into. We do have hedges. We do have some smaller plants, but that's really not the mainstay of our business. You know, think of us as the In-N-Out burger of nursery. We know what we're good at, and we stick to it. We've been selling trees for 25 years, and that's been the core of our business. That's made this company grow from Christmas trees in a parking lot to a $350 million a year company. Is because we stick to what we are good at and what we know, and that's going to continue.
Yeah, and I just wanted some assurance
Sure.
that the business model that I think all of us are impressed by would stay the same and not be changed because of financial considerations.
It's not broken, and it works very well for us. And you know, there was a comment I think about what the future is or failure. Moon Valley doesn't fail, and I'm not trying to be cocky in any respect. It's the truth. We don't close locations. We sign 10-year leases. We don't have outs in our leases. So if we sign a lease here in Hendersonville, you can count on us being here for at least 10 years, and we'll grab a couple of options while we're at it to extend.
Well, I won't be an alderman in 10 years, so I won't have to worry about that.
Thank you.
I hope I'm still around, but I
Thank
won't
you.
be an alderman. Keith, question, and I'm just about finished. So, what kind of, is there any way to vest, V-E-S-T, vest the business model to the zoning change? An upscale, you know, I like the business model, you know, upscale, large trees. So is there any way to vest that business model to the rezone?
Let me think just a second here. I think it'd be possible to do it. The use, you know, there are all those uses that are listed on there.
Right.
And in particular, we're talking about the nursery use.
Right.
It would be possible to add more clear definition to the specific type of nursery use as a condition of it. So it's possible. I think where it gets a little tricky is exactly how that is defined. But you could probably tighten it a little bit. It might be difficult to really nail it down exactly, but it's possible to do it with the plan development. And keep in mind, this is a combined plan development, and so you can do some more creative things with it. for the use.
Alderman Robertson, could I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
So where you might be going is number of parking spaces for one, which I sort of need you to start thinking about that, and whoever staff you have here. That might help restrict the type of nursery. I don't know if that's where you were thinking, but that's sort of where I was going.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the parking. That's an interesting, but I would like some more definite language. We've been told a high end, and I like that, because I tell people that Hendersonville is, Pastor, is the southernmost part of heaven, you know. So I would like some more definite definition, and would the company be willing to try to come up with some language that more represents what we're being told, a high-end nursery?
I would mention that when the item came out of General Committee, the issue about not having any loose material, so
Yep.
like mulch and all that. So that is one of the things that's already kind of on the table now. I just want to remind you.
That helps. But does the board see where I'm headed? I just like a little more teeth in the uses for this, and to assure me, because I've dealt with private equity firms, and I know how things are.
Alderman Robertson, would you like to make a motion to take a break?
If that's okay, I make a motion to break, and in the meantime, could Lance and the planning director and the company get together and see if they can come up with some language?
Okay, so you want to take a break for 2-3 minutes?
Let's take a break for 10 minutes.
Sounds good. So I have a motion to take a break. I need a second. We have a second from Alderman Garza. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Hold it. Were there no's? Okay. So Alderman Martin, anybody else? Alderman Martin votes no. So we'll take a 10-minute break. On right now? Oh, that's just embarrassing. So Alderman Robertson.
So, Keith, any luck?
It's a difficult thing to define. I think, and Lance can weigh in on this as well if I miss something. But it's a difficult thing to define a plant nursery from a high-end nursery. One of the things that does separate those would be the thing that we've discussed and we have in there already to some extent about the loose material where you don't have mulch and manure and rock and things like that in a loose kind of a setting. That is a differentiation probably between different types of nurseries. The other thing could be, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you could possibly just limit the amount of parking to what they have for this facility, and then that would at least limit the scale of, if there was another nursery, it would have to be probably a similar scale, because if they wanted to, build larger facilities, then that could trigger more parking. Anything that triggers more parking, if that's locked into the plan development, they'd have to go back to the Planning Commission, and then they'd have to come back to BOMA for approval of that, for an amendment of the final development plan. But that's the best that we can define, and I don't know if Lance had anything to add to that.
I really don't.
Okay.
I don't have
go
anything
ahead.
else to add. I mean, that was based on all of our discussions.
Okay. Well, that's why I wanted our city attorney in the discussion. I don't want to get into any legal issues.
Right.
So, Keith, there was a complaint by a citizen that there will be trucks, maybe not 18-wheelers, but there will be trucks going into the neighborhood entrance to get to the nursery. Now, these may be, I don't know what, I'm not a truck guy. I'm not from Alabama. But I'm sorry, Alabama friends. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. On Windcrest Way, where it's coming into
Yeah,
there.
will there be trucks entering that way, or will it just be cars and maybe pickup trucks?
That would be something really for the developer or Public Works, maybe to answer on that, about what that's going to be.
Because one of the speakers talked about it will change the method of vehicles, of business. So I wanted to get an answer to that.
Yeah, so it's been really clear from city staff from the beginning that they don't want anything but regular cars or pickup trucks entering in on the subdivision. And so we've kept that to where it would only be retail customers, and any kind of deliveries or pickups would be in the controlled area to the south. So the neighborhood has been the neighborhood drive has been very protected, and we've made sure to make it very clear that that will not be used for deliveries or anything like that ever.
So, Keith, would it be appropriate for a no trucks sign? We have those on Indian Lake, various locations where no trucks prohibited.
We're happy to add that, and we really don't want them going in there because we need them down there where it's set up for all that. But so yeah, we would actually want to add that.
Sarah, any comments on that suggestion? Again, I'm trying to limit. The only thing that's going to be going through the entrance there would be cars and maybe pickups, but none of these two tandem trucks or, large dump trucks.
Yeah, I think that we could work with them on an appropriate truck restriction. We'd want to be specific on the types of trucks, maybe something except local deliveries or something like that to allow, Amazon or moving truck or something like that. But I think that's something that we could work on.
Well, maybe I think Alderman Collins has got some amendments. Maybe she can add that to her amendments about trucks. I just don't want tandem trucks going down the neighborhood, because it's going to tear up the roads, and it's they leak stuff as they go in there, maybe to pick up 2 or 3 of these $1,000 trees.
Sure.
$1,000 trees, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Mayor, I think that's, let's see, let me check my list here. I think that's everything. That's all, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Robertson, thank you. Sarah, can you and Keith get together and figure out, is that something that we put in this document? Or how do we do, is that something we can just do administratively?
I think that's something that we can do administratively with the site plan if the rezoning were to be approved.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so let's go to Alderman Goodwin. But I still think, shouldn't we still put it in an amendment at some point on this? Okay, okay.
You can.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Goodwin.
Keith, I have a quick question for you. Hypothetical, let's say that the economy tanks. What will keep this nursery from running as a regular nursery? I know in the amendment it's going to say no loose soil, no stone, but they could still sell a bunch of plants and shrubs, and with it being zoned for a nursery, could that be could that happen?
Yes, as long as it didn't have those items, then it could, it could be a nursery, but a different looking nursery as far as compared to the Moon Valley.
And that would change the traffic and the customers. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Goodwin. Alderman Collins.
I do have the proposed amendment, as you will probably all recall that last time we discussed it and the developers agreed to the amendment. However, staff felt it was really necessary to get firm language to make sure that it would be enforceable. So I just realized that I had those in front of me and passed them out during the break. Keith, could you come up and talk us through this?
Yes.
Okay. The first one is supplement existing tree line buffer, backing up to the residential neighborhood homes with evergreens as determined by the planning department staff. The reason it's determined by staff is because it depends on what time of year and what is available to be planted, and we're not going to specify a specific plant.
That's correct. And what this will allow us to do is to, when they do the site plan and do their detailed landscaping plan, we can make sure that it's done to the planning staff satisfaction that meets the intent of screening on the size and the type of, and we're saying evergreens, but it just, it may not be a evergreen by definition, but it's something that's green that would provide the proper blocking.
But
so there could be a lot of different names
what is
for
the
those.
definition of evergreen? That's not what I think it is, which is that it's green all year.
Well, I think there's evergreen trees, but I think in the reference of how we're using it here is a tree that is green throughout the year.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know much about plants, so except for how to kill them. So no loose materials such as rock, mulch, soil, and manure shall be sold and/or stored on the property. The applicant agrees to landscape as determined by the planning department staff, and light with solar lights, and maintain the existing Windcrest brick wall at the southwest corner of Windcrest Way and Saundersville Road. And then we have specific things. Maintenance shall include keeping the existing brick wall well repaired or replaced exactly the design and condition it currently is, as determined by the planning staff. Add to and maintain landscaping of mulch bed around the brick wall as determined by planning staff. Maintain solar lights in good working order as determined by planning staff. So Keith, my question for you here is, this neighborhood has been through this before, where they've said the entrance is going to be maintained, and then we didn't have the ability to enforce it. And is that because there was not an actual amendment where it was in writing as part of the planning document?
That's correct. I think when that was approved, that other development was approved, and they got into that whole signage and the maintenance, it was just like thrown in there at the last, kind of at the last minute and agreed to, without it being
Verbally.
flushed out. And so it made it very difficult to determine what that is. And then this clearly puts it that, I looked at the possibility of going into super detail about what maintained would mean, but in doing it by the planning staff, that gives us the authority that, we're going to determine, are you maintaining it? And if you're not, then you would be in violation of the combined development plan, and you
what
would have to correct it.
I'm sorry, but what happens if somebody's in violation?
If somebody's in violation, our zoning enforcement officer would give them the opportunity to make them aware of it and give them the opportunity to correct it within a timely manner. If they chose not to correct it, then we would take them to municipal court and cite them, and they'd be fined. There'd be a fee and a fine. If it wasn't resolved after that, then we cite it usually every couple of weeks. If it continues, we cite it every week, and then we could cite it every day as well. So that's the progression of what we possibly have on the way we do that. And as Lance can attest, we're the planning department. We're in court just about every month on something. So enforcing these things is, not just to do good planning, but we got to do good enforcement too. And the city's historically done that very well.
Okay, so this is much different level of enforcement than the codes violations that people call into me and I contact John Henry and it's $60 and.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's like you didn't mow your grass, it's $60
correct.
or something.
This is almost equivalent, there's not a name for it, but this is almost equivalent to a development contract. This is a contract between the city and the developer that we're agreeing to let you do this, and you're agreeing to abide by all those different
So
things.
I know it's not the proper legal term, or I think I do, but it's almost like being in breach of contract. If the.
Maybe I would let Lance get in there.
It would be not being in compliance with the comprehensive or final development plan. So that is an infraction, and then there's always injunctions or that can be taken after the city court citations. So.
Alderman Collins, may I follow your question there? Okay. And that would be the case no matter who owns it?
Right, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they sell it?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so this amendment would go as part of the development plan and not with those guys right there?
That's correct.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Collins.
Forklifts shall have flashing lights for backing up and shall not have beeping noises. I do have a question about this because several people have told me that OSHA will not allow that. I don't pretend to know what OSHA will and will not allow, but is this going to be enforceable regardless?
Yeah, let me answer her question
Okay.
first. Yes, it would be enforceable if it was a part of this. It would be enforceable. It's just they don't need to agree to it if it's not possible. Maybe the applicant can address that.
There's a number of things that you can do to mitigate noise levels. You can reduce the sound to almost nothing. You can use lights, but it does have to be OSHA compliant, but they do allow lights.
Instead of beeping?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you violate OSHA, that's on you.
Well, that's on us.
So so it's going to be included in this document.
One other thing I do want to mention, in addition.
Hold on, Jim.
I'm sorry.
Is it to answer that question?
It is.
Okay, go ahead.
It's absolutely about the neighborhood, but it's also about the employees. So we want to keep them safe. So everything that we do is OSHA compliant.
Thank you. I would assume so. The next one is agree to make the following roadway improvements to Saundersville Road. Provide a center left turn lane from exit 8, Windcrest Way, as determined by the city engineer. And I do actually, through our conversation, want to ask you, how can we ensure that that center lane is completed before the initial inventory buildup were to occur if this passes?
1 second.
So I don't want them to say, well, we're almost done, but we're going to go ahead and start delivering all these trucks for the initial inventory?
Yeah, I've got it here. What we can do on that, Alderman, is we could add on to that to be completed prior to the use and occupancy
Okay.
permit. And then we can just add that, we'll add that on to that, if that's okay. And what that'll do
That's perfect.
is as they're constructing it, before they can occupy it, they'd have to get a use and occupancy. It could be a temporary use and occupancy or a full-blown use and occupancy, but then that way, that would be a catch, that the improvements would need to be done before we permitted them to occupy the site.
Okay,
So
that
that would be a catch we could do on
that
that.
sounds good to me. And was there any resolution reached about the parking?
One of the additional things that could be on here could be the number of parking spaces will be limited to the current number of parking spaces proposed. In our discussion during the break, that was kind of a way to limit the scale. If there was another use or another nursery use that wanted to scale up bigger with larger buildings and everything, or that would require more parking, then that'd just be another tripwire that would require it to have to go back through the amendment process.
Could we reduce the number of parking that it currently has?
No,
Reduce the number of spaces?
No, I
Or
thi-
does that make it not in compliance with our rules?
I think then it wouldn't be in compliance with our rules. I'm pretty sure it's the number that they're proposing is meeting our requirements.
Okay.
But that would be another way to kind of have a little bit of a limit onto that. Additionally, one other item on the amendment could be to address the heavy truck traffic. Could be wording like limit heavy truck traffic along Windcrest Way as determined by the city engineer. And then as Sarah said, that would be fully flushed out at the site plan phase, and the city engineer would determine exactly what type of signs and what type of trucks would be limited to there.
Okay. Miss Annette, I don't know if you have all that.
Yeah, I'm working on two.
Okay.
I can give you mine.
So I would like to make a motion to amend this to include the items the document I just passed out, and
You're fine, go ahead.
and the to be completed at the end of the document where it says provide a center turn lane for exit 8, blah, 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 to be completed prior to use and occupancy permit.
Hold on, temporary or permanent?
Prior to temporary or permanent use and occupancy. That way it covers both.
Alderman Collins, you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
And Keith, again, with the parking being limited, the verbiage for that.
Yes. Annette has that, what I had written on there. Do you see that, Mayor?
I'm sorry. So what you've got here, number of parking spaces committed to current number of parking spaces on what?
Proposed on the CDP.
On the CDP, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then to limit heavy truck traffic as determined by the Public Works Director. Or did you say traffic engineer?
Limit heavy truck traffic along Windcrest Way entry as determined by the city engineer.
At any specific time or just?
No, just,
Okay.
it'll be at the site plan, but that'll,
Do we need to say that?
no.
Okay,
no.
okay. That goes with, so that's actually B. That's 6. Okay, and this goes right there. Okay. So we have a motion that I'm going to explain before I ask for a second. So everything you have in front of you So that is the first part of it. 5 will have a B paragraph to it, to be completed prior to a temporary or permanent UNO being issued. Number 6 is going to say that we are going to limit heavy truck traffic along through the access of Windcrest Way as determined by the city engineer. Okay. Number 7 is the number of parking spaces will be limited to the current number of parking spaces on the CDP. So Alderman Collins, does that sound like your motion?
It is.
Okay, is there a second? Yes. We have a second from Alderman Garza. So now we're going to talk about just that motion. I have a couple people whose lights are lit up. We're going to talk about just that motion. And once we dispense of that, then we'll come back and talk about the main motion. So Alderman Collins, anything else about your amendment?
No.
Okay. Alderman Garden, anything, do you want to talk about this amendment?
Yes.
Okay, Alderman Garden, go ahead.
Okay. Adding number 6, limit heavy truck traffic through Windcrest Way. That's great, but can we see page 28
You want it pulled up
here?
there?
Can we see that?
Jason, can you do that for us? Give him a second here. That makes sense to be able to explain that a little bit better. Thank you, Jason. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would love to limit that on Windcrest Way, but I look at this, and now we're gonna bring not just the semis coming in and out, but you're gonna have all of the delivery trucks coming in and out, right there, right next to the ramp. So it's already congested there, and they're gonna make a right-hand turn out right there. I mean, I don't know that that's a good idea to add more trucks coming through there. The delivery trucks.
Wasn't a question.
Yes,
We're
sir.
just debating among ourselves. Alderman Garden.
I'm okay to hear what he has to say.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
CJ, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So I will add, as I was reading through the agenda packet as well, I noticed that the agenda packet keeps getting bigger and bigger because it keeps adding everything that we've gone through multiple meetings. This is old. The current site plan has us lined up exactly across the way from Avondale, which meets which I guess closely meets the requirement that Mr. Martin brought up in previous meetings about the 200 foot from the on-ramp to that access point. This is the latest and greatest site plan right here. Again, as we've stated from the beginning, that access will be fully gated and controlled. And the delivery trucks are, as Mr. Nix has mentioned, infrequent. I mean, the semis are even more infrequent. And that turning template you saw on the previous one was us showing that the turning template could be accomplished with the access drive even closer to the ramp, and now we've moved it even further away from it. So those delivery trucks are much smaller than a semi. Most of them are landscape bed trucks that aren't the 50-foot or 53-foot trailer that you see on the highway.
Okay, where's that diagram, the new one? What page is that?
So with the updated site plan, I don't have an updated turning template.
It might be page 34, it might be page 23.
I know we did include one with the previous packet, but in this most recent submittal, because we proved that the turning template could be accomplished closer to the ramp, we unfortunately did not include it with this packet.
So it closely meets the requirements.
Sir?
Closely.
Emailed it to planning staff.
So hold on just a second. Alderman Garden, go ahead.
I'm still trying to find this.
Okay.
I mean, I get, okay, it's across from Avondale,
Yes, ma'am.
but that's still a very congested area during high traffic hours.
Okay, the other thing that I'll point out,
I'm just not,
because with the traffic, so another thing that I'll point out is we were required to hire a third-party traffic consultant to put together a traffic study for the site. We released the traffic consultant. That traffic consultant took traffic counts during the school week. You're required to do it during the school year because the traffic during those times are much heavier. Took traffic counts during the school week. The 124-page document we got back from the traffic consultant for the access study for the site came back with recommendations that no improvements had to be made to Saundersville Road with our project, and the access points for our project. The trip generation for this site is outside of the peak traffic hours that normally occur on this road. The normal peak traffic hours are usually like 6 to 7, and then again from 4 to 5. I think is what the traffic study states, and the majority of the traffic patterns at this site are outside of those windows.
Alderman
I think
Carter,
that's important to add.
No, not right now.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Peterson, on the amendment? Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, it is. Is this ordinance to rezone this property? Or what are we up to now? 7 amendments? Wouldn't this be for their final site plan with the Planning Commission?
So Keith, go ahead.
What are we doing here? We're here, this ordinance is to rezone this property.
So there's actually 2 things going on, but go ahead, Keith.
Yes, and, yes, thank you.
Yeah, yes, Alderman. Most of those things can be taken care of at the site plan and typically would. I guess with this particular proposal, then, and the way the development plan process can work, is conditions and additional things as you've got there in your hand. Those can be added, if that helps the decision process, one way or the other. So it's okay, but you're correct. Most of those things would be addressed at the site plan level, but not the loose gravel, the gravel stuff, and the maintenance of the sign things. That would be something that would be different.
Okay, because, yeah, the Planning Commission does a great job on these projects. And it was recommended to BOMA, I think, what was it? 6-2. So I think we're all have our mind made up. I don't think 7 amendments is going to change a thing. I think we should vote on the rezoning, and if we want to do amendments, then the Planning Commission and the property owners, and I certainly welcome all of the residents to attend a Planning Commission to express your concerns and let them decide what these amendments should be. I don't even know if the owners are in agreement to 7 new amendments that we're already adding on to what the Planning Commission had already asked and to what the site plans already call for. So I am not going to approve any amendments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Sorry for interrupting you a few minutes ago. Anybody else want to speak on the amendment? Alderman Robertson.
Yeah, I appreciate Alderman Peterson's wise words. He always brings clarity to the issue. But the reason I brought up the issues I did, this is my only shot. I know the planning commission does good, but this is my only shot, and I'm only responding based on the comments I heard from the public. And so I'm just trying to incorporate safeguards that the public has expressed concern about. That's the reason that I will be supporting the amendments. Thank you.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Collins.
I agree with both of you. Neither of you are wrong. This is a lot more detail than we would normally go into, but this is an intense change, and I feel like there's a need to micromanage it and protect the people in Windcrest to the extent that we are legally permitted to do that. And that is what I think this amendment accomplishes. And without these protections in it for the people there, I mean, I don't see how I can support the overall ordinance. I really need this amendment to be on here.
Alderman Collins, thank you. Alderman Waters, on the amendment.
Just a question, Mayor. Can we vote to send this back to planning and let planning put it in their reports instead of us sitting here talking about it?
We can't send it back to planning.
Sir?
We can't send it back to planning.
We can't?
I'm looking at Keith, he's saying no.
This is the first
Well,
I've seen it.
it will go back to planning when they come for what, Keith?
For the site plan.
Okay, so we'll go back to
So
planning
it'll
for
go back to
site plan.
planning for the site plan.
It does go back to you,
Yeah. For the site plan.
to the site plan.
Yeah, when they do all the real super detailed stuff.
And this can be inserted at that time.
Well, it will be. If the amendments are approved, then when we're reviewing the site plan, then we're gonna go by all those amendments, make sure that that's incorporated, as well as the regular stuff that we would do on our reviews.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate the acknowledgement. I need to express a couple of things, especially to the people that are for it and the ones that are against it. Now you're getting to see government at its best here, because there are so many things that we have to look at. And I know you're focused in on your project, and you're focused in on your homes. And so we're trying to mesh it together and make it right. And that's why that we think that, you're probably out there saying, pardon the expression, why in the hell are they doing this on these amendments? I don't even know what it is. But you have to understand, after you look at it and go home and look at it, we're making it right there on the cuff. So that's why all these people are talking about it, because it's important not only to you guys, but it's definitely important to the people of Hendersonville. Because, see, time and time again, we have certain, and I'm not going to name names or anything like this, but we have developers that come up to us and they go, oh yeah, and they say the same things to the people that live there. Oh yeah, we're going to do whatever you say. And there's a project that's not in my ward, but it's in Ward 3 that we've had issues with, where they agreed to do something, and because I don't want to, talk bad about them or ill will, because that's not how I roll, so to speak. But to me, as far as I'm concerned, they really did a job on us. And so we're cautious of those kind of developments. We had an in and out with their gate project. It's right there next to Waffle House. I encourage everybody to go by Waffle House to look at that gate right there that goes out onto Main Street. We had no idea. They were saying they got it approved. They didn't. And so they were misrepresenting the truth to us. So I just want you guys to know we're being kind of hard. You're going, gosh, they're doing so much on our property, but yet we're just trying to make sure that it's right. And I want you guys to know that, and I want you folks to know why that we're crossing all the T's and dotting the I's on this project. So just bear with us and let us work through this out, and we'll see what comes out on the other side. I have some reservations, and this is talking about the amendment. I had some reservations about the amendment, but Alderman, my good colleague from Ward 2, who's on his last couple of days here, or a couple of meetings left, did point out a good thing that was correct about this. This would be addressed on site plan, and I you know, he and I both have been on the planning commission, and we both, I kind of knew it, but I just didn't want to say anything because I knew it was going to be addressed either way. But if we put it into this resolution or ordinance the way it is tonight, it will make, it will be better than having some public person or the planning commission, you know, passing the buck, because the buck is right here in this seat as far as I'm concerned. So I think we should just go ahead and pass the amendments. Then they can revisit it on site plan if this passes. And if it doesn't, then we just sat up here for an hour or two saying, nice to meet you, you know. But that's the way that I feel about it. But I think you guys needed to know just exactly what was going on. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman Skidmore.
All right, bud.
So we've got in front of us is an amendment that has 7 parts. The first 5 are written and are typed and were handed to you. We have 5B, which is to be completed prior to the issuance of temporary or permanent UNO. We have 6, which is limit heavy truck traffic using Windcrest Way as determined by the city engineer. Item number 7, the number of parking spaces is limited to the current number of spaces on the CDP. Does anybody else have a question about this or need any explanation? Jason, are you ready for us? So all those in favor of the amendment, press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Hold on there, we're missing. Oh, we're good. So that passes 8-5. Those voting in favor, Alderman Skidmore, Martin, Sassy, Garza, Alderman Garten, Collins, and Robertson, and myself. Those voting against, Alderman Bergdorf, Peterson, Dixon, Goodwin, and Waters. So we're back on the main motion. That passes by a majority vote. We're back on the main motion. We've amended that with what we just voted on. Any discussion on the main motion at this point? All those in favor, Alderman Bergdorf.
Yes. Is this the appropriate time to ask the sponsor if he would like to defer the motion? Can we do that, or is it not appropriate?
Anybody can make a motion to defer it. If he wants to withdraw it, that's totally up to him.
Okay.
But at this point, if you want to defer it, we'd have to take a vote on it, and we also would have to ask our city attorney a question.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead. I propose we defer
Okay.
this vote until the public gets properly notified of all the changes that are, number 1, this amendment, number 2, the changes that are planned for the property at Vietnam Vets, this piece of property we're discussing. I have a second over there.
Okay. So we have a motion to defer this. You want to give me a time period? 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Because next week will be 3 weeks.
What does it? 2 weeks. 2 weeks?
It has to be 3 because we have 5 weeks this month.
Okay, 3 weeks then.
So okay. So we have a second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion on that?
I would like to have some discussion, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. May I ask the applicant to approach? Is it? Okay. Mr. Page.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for hanging in there with us.
Yes, sir.
This is a big deal to a lot of our neighbors and our community. Would you be receptive to this deferral?
You don't have to answer that, and you don't have to be okay with it.
Yeah, either one.
Can I discuss?
Please.
So while he's doing that, I want to remind folks of something. We deal with land use issues, and especially when it's an ordinance concerning zoning. We have a state mandated responsibility to consider those within a reasonable amount of time. They agreed to a deferral at the Planning Commission that extended their time by a month. And because of the way the calendar fell, we couldn't deal with this 2 weeks ago. We had to extend it a full month after first reading. So just to remind you all that the situation we're in right now.
Are we? I'm sorry, Mayor. Are we granted some grace because of the way the calendar fell?
Go ahead, ask that again, please.
Are we granted some grace because of the way the calendar fell?
In what way?
In our delay of hearing their ordinance, hearing their zoning change?
I don't know, it might be shaky ground. If this didn't go the applicant's way, and we deferred it again,
We're
could
just
be an
trying to
issue.
cover all the bases.
Right. It
Yeah.
could be an issue that could be raised if this is not considered a reasonable amount of time to consider it based on all the delays from start to finish.
Yes.
It could be an issue.
Okay.
But,
Thank you, I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah.
Do you want to ask the question?
Please, may I have your answer?
Yes, yeah. I've discussed with my client, Moon Valley, and we've been under contract on the property for half a year now. And, you know, I've been talking with the neighborhood for months. And we had our first meeting with them in May, earlier this year. I spent my Saturday afternoon talking with Roger and Annika, which was obviously not a good use of time. And so, you know, we aren't willing to defer. We would like to just know if we can do this, and if not, then we're going to move on
Thank you
somewhere else.
Thank you for your Herculean effort as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Bergdorf, thank you. Alderman Collins on the motion to defer.
Yes, I do have a question. The motion, if Alderman Bergdorf will entertain me, the motion predicates on that you would like to give additional public notice for hearing, for another public hearing, and expand upon the 250 feet parameter from the property. Is that what you're asking us to do?
I don't know necessarily the mechanism by which to do this. The mechanism and the rules in play have not been able to dictate the number of people, when, in my mind, and in other, apparently other cities, jurisdictions, or planning committees, standard, that they were notified properly. Am I making any sense there?
I think what you're saying
Okay.
is that, and I agree
So,
with you, actually,
okay.
that 250 feet is not enough
Correct.
for the notice of public hearing that
Correct.
goes out. And it isn't. And I think that, however, deferring this doesn't change that. And I don't know if, I mean, I would have to ask Mayor Clary, if we defer this, do we have another public hearing where another set of notice goes out anyway? Or like, I'm not sure what the mechanism is for increasing the public awareness, which seems to be the goal in deferring.
I'm guessing we can't force them to pay for more notices of a public hearing.
Oh, they pay for that?
Yeah, they pay for that, right, Keith? Oh, we pay for it.
It's
They
all
pay.
built into the generous fee. It's into the fee. That's covered by.
I mean, it's
Keith,
just
can you come up here
piece
and-
of mail, right?
There's more than mail outs that would be involved. We'd need to republish it in the paper.
Oh.
And then the state law has just recently changed to where we have to give, instead of the 15 days we have done up until this year, now we've got to give, I think it's 21 days, 20 or 21 days. And that makes it does make it more challenging because we put our notices for these public hearings in the standard, and we can only get those in on Tuesdays, which are today at like 10 a.m. for the next week. So it just, so there's more than mail outs that would need to be done. We can do it, but it's there would be a lot involved with that. Similar things we've done with the Planning Commission, and we got one right now, but the applicant asked for a deferral, and we just reopened the public hearing and just kind of re-noticed. But of course, on those, we don't have to do the paper notice that we have to do for the BOMA. That's one of the differences.
So if we deferred, we really wouldn't hear it back until the end of November?
It'd be 21 days, is that what you're saying?
So the motion was just to defer it for 3 weeks to our next meeting. I think you had legitimate questions asking what do we want to accomplish during that time? And maybe Alderman Bergdorf needs to.
Yeah.
Was your motion just that simple, to defer for 21 days?
3 weeks.
Okay.
Just defer.
Okay.
For 3 weeks. That was the motion.
Okay.
Okay. And that was the motion you understood, you said? Okay.
And it may be possible, Lance, it may be maybe
I'm not sure we
to
can get
reopen the public hearing.
I don't know that we can get the public hearing noticed in.
Yeah, I guess
21
if we could
days.
reopen it, but then, but then we wouldn't, then people would be confused because it wouldn't be in the paper, even though we got it out on the mail. So we'd need to have probably the proper time to do it. Or we may create a different situation, trying to rush it back, instead of giving it, even more time.
So right now, the motion is just to defer for 3 weeks.
That's all it is.
Okay, thank you. You good? Okay. Alderman Waters, on the motion to defer, that's all we're discussing
I just
right
got a question. Did they respond that they was in favor of the defer, or they didn't want it
They asked us to go forward and give them a decision tonight.
tonight? That's what I thought.
Okay. Alderman Waters, thank you. Alderman Skidmore, on the motion to defer.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Y'all need to think of what you're doing. You're gonna, by the time that and I mean no disrespect to anybody that sits on this board, but I want you to think what you're doing. You gotta sometimes think over those trees, no pun intended. Get with the forest between the trees there. In 3 weeks, by the time this all comes back, there could be 6 new faces on this board. Think about that. That do not have a clue that the people that have been involved with this issue since May, and the city of Hendersonville has been since May. The people that are with this project have been involved in it with the people that live in Windcrest since May. Whether you like them or not, we know the issues. In 3 weeks, you're going to have 6 new ones, and man, sometimes you rolling the dice is going to come up snake eyes. So I would rather go ahead, although the motion to defer is well taken by me, and I appreciate it, but I'm voting against the deferral because this is what we're elected to do up here tonight. Whether you agree or disagree with me on how that I'm going to vote, but that's your vote. That's why you were elected to do it. So I say vote against the deferral, and let's just move on and get this thing done, because it's been since May that we're ready. I think for the most part. I think the amendments are ready. I think we can put those things. I'm going to advocate to put those amendments in, because they're still going to hit them at the final on the plat. They're going to hit them again with that to make sure that that's, if you're worried about that, and vote it up or down tonight. And I think that we would be stewards of the taxpayers' money and with doing our job as aldermen. So, but it's up to you guys, but I am asking you to vote against the deferral this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Martin.
Everything Alderman Skidmore said, I mean, that's right on the nose. They don't want a deferral, and we've laid 7 more stipulations on them that we're asking them to work with. So I think we should move forward.
Alderman Martin, thank you. Alderman Garten, on the motion to defer.
I was going to echo, or I am echoing what Alderman Skidmore and Martin just said. I think they're ready to move on, and I think these people are tired of seeing us. I think they're done coming. So I'm going to vote no to defer it.
Alderman Garten, you finished?
I am.
Thank you. Alderman Dixon wishes to withdraw her second. We have a motion on the floor from Alderman Bergdorf that doesn't have a second. That's to defer for 3 weeks. Is there a second? So there is no second for the motion to defer. So we are back on the main motion that has been amended. All those in favor, please press the green button. Those opposed, please press the red one. So this passes 7-6. Those in favor, Alderman Skidmore, Peterson, Martin, Garza, Alderman Collins and Robertson, and myself. Those against, Alderman Bergdorf, Sassy, Dixon, Goodwin, Garten, Waters. Thank you all. Thank you, Jason. The next item on our agenda is, we removed item number 2, is Resolution 2024-34. This is a resolution amending the Football 5 Comprehensive Development Plan located at 240 Innovation Way, east of New Shackle Island Road and south of Volunteer Drive. Alderman Martin.
Second.
So thank you, Alderman Martin, for the motion.
Sorry.
We have a second from Alderman Peterson. Any discussion on this? All those in favor of Resolution 2024-34, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have Resolution 2024-38. This is the resolution approving the Norman Creek Phase 3 Final Development Plan located at 0 Anderson Lane. I so move. And we have a second from, who was it? Alderman Waters. Just to let y'all know, I think that we had a very legitimate question come up from our speaker. And I'm sort of leaning to withdrawing this, but do we want to have discussion on it? I'll come to you, Alderman Collins.
I want to know if we have legal standing to deny this. I guess that's a question for a combination of Director Free and and Mr. Ray.
So, Brian, we may ask you to speak, so sit tight, okay? Okay, so.
Keith, you'll help me out with the details, because much of this is by right.
That's right.
Right, but there are some substantial changes to it.
Yes.
Would you consider a substantial change being the tying into the cul-de-sac?
Oh, no, there's actually not a substantial change.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually not substantially changed from the original preliminary development plan that had the more houses and had actually the connection to the property behind it as well. This doesn't have any connection to that neighborhood that's in the county or to the future Forest Park area as well. It'll dead end back there in a circle.
What was his question?
So let me go back to the initial question, is standing.
So, I mean, this is close. I mean, what I understand from it as I sit here is that what is being proposed tonight to us is all by right invested.
That's correct.
I'm not sure what the his question may have been different than what this question is, so I'm not speaking.
My question.
Okay.
So I understand that substantially compliant means one thing legally, but substantial, to me, it is a substantial change because it was supposed to connect to other streets, whereas they wouldn't have only one street for their point of ingress and egress.
Mm-hmm.
And that forces all of the traffic through the Norman Creek neighborhood, whereas initially it would have been divided amongst potentially other streets. So it feels substantial, however, I understand that's not the legal definition of substantial.
So I'm going to take that as a question, okay?
I hate this.
Okay. I'm going to take that as a question. So are we changing the access with approval of this?
No, the access was actually changed when Forest Park was approved. And that's where the stub out was going to go, was into the Forest Park neighborhood. But when that development plan was approved, that connection was not made because of topo issues.
Give me a second, Brian. Give me a second, Brian. So Alderman Collins, anything else?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Brian DeMoy to come up here. Brian, you asked, without objection, we're going to suspend the rules to hear from him. Thank you. He raised a question that sort of surprised me a little bit about the cul-de-sac, and that was probably the part that I had the most concern. So tell us again what you were claiming.
So,
What was it?
as of, if you look at the meeting for final approval plans, which would have been in,
Brian, I'm sorry, hold on. Jason, do you have the ability to pull that up? Jason, JP, do y'all have the ability to pull that up?
so the preliminary plan was December 13th. Give me one moment, and I'll find, January 24th, 2017, final development plan approved. If you look at the final development plan, which is this plan, that is not the plan. That didn't exist.
Hold it, we can't hear you if you move away from the
Sorry,
microphone.
I can be as loud as I can. So, on that date, on the plan, you can see that Norman Creek, the final approved plans, shows the housing going through Norman Way up to the end. It makes the right on Macy. There is Keats Court, which is a cul-de-sac on the final plans. This is their final plans, which is Norman Creek Phase 3, which didn't exist, is not in the final plan of Norman Creek. This is an addition of 31 homes, which would be an increase of our neighborhood of over 30%,
Hold on,
which would be
Brian.
substantial. This is them. This is not the one from 2017.
Okay,
You're not looking at the 2017. I'm happy to bring it up if you'd like to see it.
hold on one second. Hand it to Keith, have him
Sure.
help.
Yeah, so that's the
And I
final
realize
plan
that we're
was
getting
approved.
more confused, not less confused.
And that's 2017, so you can see this is Macy, that is a cul-de-sac,
Right.
and that is Keats Court, that is also a cul-de-sac.
Right.
Norman was originally gonna terminate, but now it does not because it connects, right? But
That's
these
good.
two, even through all of the other addendums from 2019, from 2021, all of them show that Macy Drive ends, and that the neighborhood is 92 homes. The fact that you want to add on an additional 31 homes to a neighborhood that was only supposed to be 92, increasing the volume of that neighborhood by 33%,
Hold
I
on.
would consider that significant.
Okay, hold on, Jason. So Keith, could you help us out some?
Yeah, I can kind of explain. So Norman Creek, when it was approved as a preliminary development plan, it had Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3.
Hold on, Jason, we're just gonna listen to Keith right now, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It had Phase.
Brian, I'm sorry. I called Mike Jim for 20 times earlier, so
Yeah.
go ahead.
When it was originally approved, it had 3 phases,
Mm-hmm.
or it was the totality, even if it wasn't broken into phases, it was the totality of the whole thing. And then the area that this gentleman lives in, I think it's in Phase 2. So Phase 1 of Norman Creek, that was that front part that was built off of Anderson. And then the next phase was Phase 2. And then this is Phase 3 of Norman Creek subdivision. And I'd have to look at it, like,
It's right here.
yeah.
It's right here. There's nothing in Macy, sir.
Oh,
That's your
Brian, we're
preliminary.
trying to be helpful here.
The preliminary plan has nothing in Macy. It goes up. The other end of Norman
Brian,
is a
Brian.
cul-de-sac. Sorry. Just stating
Yeah.
that
So,
And
so
I-
hold on just a second, Keith.
Yeah, that's good.
Does anybody have a big objection if I withdraw this? Does anybody want to discuss it tonight or vote to defer it? Does anybody have a big objection if I withdraw it?
Wait,
No.
withdraw it altogether?
No, withdraw it just from tonight, and then I'll put it on the agenda in 3 weeks. So Alderman Martin, I'm specifically looking for you. You've dealt with this more than anybody else.
I like the idea.
Okay, okay.
I don't know about
Okay.
the details.
So I am the only sponsor. I'm going to withdraw that at this point.
Temporary
Nope,
But I'll look into it.
Oh,
We'll find out.
I'm still the only sponsor, so I'm going to withdraw at this
Yeah.
point.
But when
And
that- when
just to
that's
let you know,
like
my
that,
intentions is to
on the
bring it back when we
plans,
meet
then you
again, which is in
gotta-
3
I'll
weeks.
look at the actual, what the wording and everything says.
So, I believe we're on appointments. You think that's right, isn't it? Okay, we have 6 appointments that are together. I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion from Alderman Peterson that we approve these 6 appointments. I think the second was Alderman Sassy? Okay. Alderman Robertson, did you want to discuss these?
Yeah, I'm so excited that Ms. Langford has agreed to serve on the Golf Commission. What position is she taking?
So-
Because I think all the.
Yeah. So, Chris Maynard.
Right.
Who was recommended by you and Jonathan Hayes 5 years ago, I believe. Came on the Golf Course Commission, has been the chairman ever since.
Okay.
He has been a stellar employee as a volunteer.
Okay.
We extended his term without telling him, and that was intentional.
Yeah.
And he
Okay.
notified me that, and he told the golf course commission last night, he is sticking to his previous
Yes.
term.
Yes, so she's gonna take his position.
She will be
in
taking his-
in what, January?
In
or-
January.
Jan,
So-
okay.
So, yes.
No further question.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Sass, do you have a question on the appointments or a statement?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Do all of these appointments live within the city limits?
Yeah, they have to.
Okay, including on the disability board? All of them live in the city?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, I mean, we can look at their packets here, I'm sure,
Well, I was just looking at specifically Marshall Boyd. It didn't say a specific ward for him, so I wasn't sure if he lived within the city limits or not.
okay.
And you said he does, right?
Yeah, yeah. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving Patty Lang to be on beautiful Hendersonville, Barbara Brennan to be reappointed to the Disability Board, the appointment of Marshall Boyd to the Disability Board, the appointment of Corey Langford to the Golf Course Commission, Todd Burnham to the Golf Course Commission, and Rob Planger to the Golf Course Commission. Please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Brief committee reports. Chairman Dixon, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. We did not have any agenda items tonight, nor did we have an updated sales tax report, so our meeting was canceled. Thank you.
That deflated me.
Sorry.
Okay. Chairman Skidmore, Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We just real quickly, we've got some resolutions that are coming before us about our waste collection. It's going to be an incentive program, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it because we've got other things that are more important for us to do tonight. And then, but that is important. Anything we cross here is important. Don't think it's not. But it's just more of a, we've got to get into executive session tonight. We've got the dedication of a right-of-way that will be coming to us on Indian Lake Road. And we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. And then the other is approval of the completed streets in Savannah, Phase 8, Section 2, within the Hendersonville, Sumner County, in the city of Hendersonville. Briefly, that is very, not all of this is, it all is important, but this is real important, what I'm getting ready to tell you. We had a discussion about trying to get where Merrill Hyde School is from about 3 to 3:30, maybe an increase in the traffic flow there, like having the stop sign stop a little quicker or the green go a little longer to get the kids out of the school. And so we're going to work on that one. We've been working on the traffic stuff in Hendersonville for so long, but once we get one thing just about resolved, something else comes up, which is not a problem because that, unfortunately is hard on the car riders. I guess we were talking about that in Public Works. We have the walkers, isn't that right, Mayor? You kind of corrected me. The walkers,
the car riders, and the bus riders.
Yeah, the car riders and the bus riders. But even back when I was going to school, then we were called walkers because I used to walk to school all the time. But I didn't have to go backwards in the snow with no shoes on, like our grandparents and mother and father had to. But anyway, that's all we did tonight, Mayor, and we'll come back with all that at a later date in a couple weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. Alderman Waters, did you have a question for Chairman Skidmore?
It's the morning traffic going to that school, because that's right where I live, and this morning, it took me 30 minutes to get to McDonald's to get my coffee. That's in
30
the morning.
minutes? Oh, my Lord, okay.
So it's not just in the evening, it's morning and evening.
Okay.
And if I've got one call, I've got 4.
Okay, yes, sir.
About that, sitting there. We got to do something about the school.
Okay.
And I know that's a county issue, not a city, but we've got to do something.
Well, we may, if I may respond, Mayor.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to have Sarah and her crew in Public Works to look at the traffic signal and see if we can't reduce it maybe 15 to 30 minutes, because that's for the children, and I'll ask her to look at the morning traffic times as well as the afternoon times as well, if that's okay. Because we certainly don't want you to miss your coffee. And I don't want the people to get in the traffic going to school in the morning time. But yes, sir, you're, to be serious about it, you are exactly right. Because those are the peak hours for our children and their parents getting them to school and back. So I'll ask her to look.
Okay, excuse me,
in
I
the morning.
don't think the light has anything to do with it. It's the traffic going in and out of that school, and I think it's an issue that the county needs to address.
Yes, sir, it very well may be, but let us take a look at it and see if we can't, to look at it, and then if it's something that we can't do, we'll go up there to that town, I don't want to mention their name.
No, don't.
And talk about it up there.
No, we was up there last night.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, you finished?
Yes, sir, I am.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Mayor,
okay.
what did you do on number 4?
Are you asking about the agenda?
Huh?
On the agenda?
Yeah.
I withdrew that. I withdrew that. We will take that up in next time we meet.
When?
Next time we meet.
Okay. 'Cause this gentleman deserves a better answer than we're giving him tonight. He's been here 3 or 4 times. I spoke with him a while ago in private. He showed me what he's up against in that community. So you pulled it to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear that? Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. Jesse.
Thank you, Mayor. And McDonald's does have pretty good coffee. I go there myself to get coffee. Good news is we had our traffic engineer start this week, so these issues that come up, the city can be more responsive to them now as we have our traffic engineer in-house. As far as paving goes this week, there's 3 sections of street that we're going to be doing: Cherry Hill, Bay Drive, and Country Club. So Rogers Group is finishing up a really big project in Gallatin, so they'll be back this week to do those streets, which is really good news. And then y'all probably know, but the Pig Fest is this weekend. So there's still tickets available for the concert Friday night. You can go to pigfesttn.com. And then Saturday, the event's open and free. So that's all I have for this evening. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Appreciate that. Any questions for Jesse? Alderman Robertson.
Jesse, I've seen complaints and pictures of roads that were milled, waiting 5 to 6 weeks for paving. I think some of them were in Ward 2 that I saw online. How long typically does it take after we mill to pave? Because when you mill it, it tears the street completely up.
We've had conversations with our paving group about the length of time that some of these streets have sat milled.
Yes.
They had some paving equipment that broke, and so the milling crew and the paving crew are different crews. There was an instance where they had some of their paving equipment fail on them, and so there was some catch-up. We have more paving than we've ever done. Our contract, I think, requires a 2-week. There's a 2-week window, so
Yes.
4 and 5 weeks is not in line with our contract. And we've had discussions with our vendor, and we're going to keep on top of our vendor on the gap of window, because 4 and 5 weeks is not acceptable amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jesse? Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda is executive session. I'll be honest with you, I think this one's going to take 10, 20 minutes. So 13 of us and our city attorney are going to head over here. Alderman Goodwin? Alderman Garten, do you have a second? Second from Alderman Waters. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Y'all have a good night. Thank you all for your work.